Chapter 40-48. If it had been the previous idiot Meng Tong, the two of them wouldn't have paid any attention to him. However, after eating the meridian heart-shattering pill, Meng Tong's strength had skyrocketed and his temperament had changed greatly. Especially since Meng Jueguang's sudden death, he had been in a state of seclusion and had become somewhat unfathomable. Maybe he would be a good help. Meng Tong and Lin Yi's grudge was as deep as theirs. They were natural allies, and there was no doubt that he was reliable. However, Meng Tong, whose temperament had become even weirder, only scolded them coldly after listening to their conversation. Idiots. Murongzhan and Kang Mingming could no longer hold back their disdain. They had always thought that their status was far above Meng Tong's, but now they were being looked down upon by someone who used to be a nobody. It was intolerable. However, just as their expressions changed, they immediately felt a violent and ferocious aura pressing down on top of their heads, causing them to be a little breathless. You're already in the middle stage of the foundation-building realm? Kang Mingming and Murongzhan were shocked at the same time. They never thought that in such a short time, Meng Tong would be reborn and break through to the middle stage of the foundation-building realm. When Murongzhan first came to the Welcome Pavilion, her strength was at the peak of the early stage of the foundation-building realm. She was the only one who stood out. Someone like Meng Tong was nothing in her eyes. However, in just a few months, he had become a middle-stage foundation-building realm powerhouse that she had to look up to. Strength determined the right to speak. If Meng Tong was still at the peak of the early stage of the foundation-building realm, Murongzhan and Kang Mingming would have fallen out with him right away because of his disdain. However, he was now a middle-stage foundation-building realm powerhouse. His strength was completely above the two of them. That was a completely different story. Even if Murongzhan and Kang Mingming were unhappy, they could only endure it for now. Meng Tong ignored the two's shock and continued to say disdainfully, "With your meager strength, you can't even defeat me. How dare they kidnap Shangguan Laner and frame Lin Yi?" It was truly a miracle that they were able to survive until now unscathed. Yet, they still had the face to wonder how they could find them. Even Shangguan Tianhua has personally come out. Is it strange that such a powerful person has a way to find you? A series of merciless disdain and criticism. Both Murongzhan and Kang Xiaoming's faces turned red and they were speechless. Looking back, they realized that kidnapping Shangguan Laner was really an act of obsession. It was really lucky for them to be able to live until now. Kidnap Shangguan Laner. This idea was proposed by Miss Murong in the beginning. It has nothing to do with me. Kang Mingming cleared himself. From the beginning to the end, he only wanted to deal with Lin Yi, unlike Murongzhan, who had a personal grudge against Shanghai Laner. Murongzhan was so embarrassed that he could not speak for a long time. After a long time, he said with a straight face, "Since things have come to this, why are you still talking about these useless things? You have the time to blame each other. It's better to think about how to deal with Lin Yi next." Now Su Lingchong is gone, and so is Meng Jueguang. Our backers are all gone. What else can we do? Meng Tong snorted disdainfully. If it was Meng Tong in the past, he would have jumped out to challenge Lin Yi a long time ago when his strength skyrocketed to the middle stage of the foundation-building realm. He probably would not even bother to think about conspiracies. He just wanted to trample on Lin Yi to show off. However, his temperament had changed. He was no longer as stupid and naive as before. Instead, he had learned to endure. But we can't let Lin Yi go so easily. As long as we study him carefully, we can definitely find his weakness. Murongzhan said unwillingly. Kang Mingming, you and Lin Yi are old rivals in the secular world. You should know his weakness the best. Meng Tong turned around and asked. His grudge with Lin Yi was real. No matter how his temperament changed, if there was a chance to kill Lin Yi, he would definitely not let it go. Kang Mingming thought about it and pondered for a moment. Well, this guy is affectionate and likes to show off. Other than that, there seems to be nothing. Hey, I got it. Meng Tong and Murongzhan were excited at the same time. Say it. Lin Yi and Dongfang Badeo of Xuanji Pavilion are also rivals in the secular world. I heard that this old J8 lamp is doing well now. I will find him and think of a way together. Kang Mingming suggested. Although he had no friendship with Dongfang Badeo, The enemy of the enemy was a friend. Since they were all to deal with Lin Yi, naturally, the more people, the better. Meng Tong nodded and said, "That's good. By the way, also find Zhong Pingliang of your Chongtian pavilion. We can't lose contact with these people just because Su Lingchong is gone. I think Zhong Pingliang is also a good person." Yes, yes, how could I forget him in this kidnapping? If he was there at the beginning, we wouldn't need to find Chao Wu, this fence-sitter. Kong Mingming nodded again and again. In fact, it couldn't be said that he forgot. During this time, Kong Mingming had been hanging out with Morong Zhen. At the beginning, he didn't call Zhong Pingliang purely because of the man's exclusive mentality. He didn't want Zhong Pingliang to take the opportunity to get too close to Morong Zhen, this coquettish woman. But now, he couldn't care about these miscellaneous things. It was more important to deal with Lin Yi. Kong Mingming immediately set off to find Dongfang Badeo. He had the identity of a new deacon. Even if Su Lingchong, this big backer, was gone, he was still relatively popular in the Welcome Pavilion. Everyone had to give him some face. More than half a year had passed. Looking at all the newcomers of the Welcome Pavilion and the 3 pavilions, if you want to list the most famous and most glorious newcomers, Lin Yi was undoubtedly ranked first. Kong Mingming was ranked second with the bonus of a new deacon, and the third person was Dongfang Badeo of Xuanji Pavilion. Although most of the people on Heaven Stage Island looked down upon the cultivators from the secular world, it had been proven that every time a person was transported from the secular world, they might appear to be down and out because they were ostracized, but in the end, they would often become elites and stand above most of the local cultivators on Heaven Stage Island. This was not surprising at all. Everyone who had the opportunity to come to the Heavenly Stage Island was a super elite, selected from hundreds of millions of people in the secular world. Even if they couldn't compare with the top group of people on the Heavenly Stage Island, if it was just to compete with the ordinary practitioners on the Heavenly Stage Island, they were absolutely more than enough in terms of strength and shrewdness. If they encountered a little more opportunity, they could easily stand out. Chapter 40-49. For a long time, watching Lin Yi's brilliant performance, Dongfang Badeo said that he was not jealous at all. It was absolutely nonsense. Even in his dreams, he wanted to step on Lin Yi. It was a pity that he was in the mysterious pavilion and had no intersection with Lin Yi of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, and it was difficult to pose any threat to Lin Yi. This feeling of power, but nowhere to use it, could make people crazy. Kong Xiaoming and the others simply couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him because the mysterious pavilion stood them up during the voting for the new deacon. If it wasn't for Su Lingchong and the others losing their backing, they probably wouldn't even remember that such a figure existed until now. In the face of Kong Mingming's visit, Dongfang Badeo showed great enthusiasm. Especially when he heard that they were going to join forces to deal with Lin Yi, he was extremely enthusiastic and agreed to join the team on the spot. Originally, Dongfang Badeo also had some intention of taking advantage of his seniority. He thought that after joining the team, he could at least be a person who gave orders. However, when he saw the strength of Meng Tong and Morong Zhen, especially Meng Tong, a master in the middle stage of Zhuji realm, he suddenly shriveled. Dongfang Badeo did not dare to pretend and gave advice to everyone. The old men in our mysterious pavilion are self-contained and have a wide range of contacts. I heard a news related to Lin Yi a few days ago. I don't know if you have heard it. What news? Everyone asked. Lin Yi, that guy, seems to be preparing to cast recently. I heard from the old men in the mysterious pavilion that Lin Yi also followed Hongzhong of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce to the auction in the extreme North Island. It seems that it was to bid for casting materials. I don't know where he got so many spirit jades to be so confident. Dongfang Badeo pinched his chin. Casting? Kong Mingming's eyes suddenly brightened, and he said excitedly, "Isn't that just right? Let's go and destroy him. Even if we can't kill him, we will disgust him." Hearing this, Meng Tong and Morong Zhen also nodded one after another. This idea sounded a bit small, but at the moment, they had no better way. What's more, if they let Lin Yi cast any magic weapon, and his strength soared, it was not a good thing for them. It turns out that, no wonder Lin Yi has been appearing and disappearing mysteriously during this time. Only then did Morong Zhen come to a realization. Then, he said with a slight headache, "But if we're going to destroy it, we'll have to find the place where he forged the weapon first." right? It's like looking for a needle in a haystack with just the few of us. How are we supposed to find it? Meng Tong thought for a moment and suddenly said, Kong Ming Ming, when you kidnapped him, you used a flying spiritual beast. That's right. I borrowed it from someone I know in the Hall of Alchemy. Although we have flying spiritual beasts in the Welcome Pavilion, there are only a few of them, and it's easy for people to notice. Kong Ming Ming nodded. That's good. Continue to think of a way to borrow a flying spiritual beast. When Lin Yi shows up next time, we'll follow him in the sky. No matter how sensitive his senses are, he won't be able to sense us. When that time comes, we just need to follow the clues and find his hiding place. Meng Tong said confidently, That's right, that's a brilliant idea. Kong Ming Ming and the rest nodded. With their strength alone, it was too difficult to follow Lin Yi on the ground. However, it would be a different story if they were in the sky. Not only would it be difficult to lose him, but it would also be difficult to find him. Under normal circumstances, it would be difficult to be discovered. After the few of them discussed the plan, they began to move. They asked Kong Ming Ming to borrow a flying spiritual beast. On the other hand, Murong Zhan stayed in the wooden house to follow him. As soon as Lin Yi appeared, he would inform Meng Tong and the rest to take action. Lin Yi, on the other hand, didn't notice any of this at all. His mind was completely focused on the forging process that was about to start. After the King of Junk's repeated delays, everything was ready now. Success or failure depended on this. Before starting, Lin Yi specially returned to the Welcome Pavilion to inform senior brother Ku Po and the rest. Once the equipment forging started, it could not be stopped halfway. Nobody knew how long it would last. Therefore, it was necessary to inform these people in advance, lest they thought that Lin Yi had gone missing and caused trouble. This gave Kong Ming Ming and the rest, who were scheming, an opportunity. After Lin Yi left, they began to follow him in the sky. Although Lin Yi was cautious along the way, he neglected the flying spiritual beast above him. Even if he raised his head occasionally, he would not think too much about it. Flying spiritual beasts were very common mounts on Heaven Stage Island, and there were often flying spiritual beasts above him. When Kong Ming Ming and the rest were in the sky, they did not have any malicious thoughts about Lin Yi, so the jade pendant would not alert them. What's this guy doing in the forest? Is he going to smith in the forest? He can't be that stupid, right? Kong Ming Ming was confused when he saw Lin Yi running into the forest after leaving the Welcome Pavilion. They were not blacksmiths, but they knew that the requirement for the stability of the surrounding environment was not lower than that of alchemy. God knew if he would catch fire if he were to smith in the forest. Let's wait and see. Meng Tong and the rest were also confused. After hesitating for a while, they finally decided to stay put and let the flying spiritual beast fly back and forth in the sky, pretending to be busy. After a while, their eyes lit up at the same time. He's out. However, Murong Zhan was stunned. That's not right. This person is not Lin Yi. Look at his face. He looks completely different from Lin Yi. Women were always more attentive. Although they were not very high from the ground, they were still at a high altitude to ensure that Lin Yi would not notice them. Looking down from above, the person was just a peanut. At most, they could determine the person's identity by the position of the body. Very few people would pay attention to the specific appearance like Murong Zhan. However, after she said that, Meng Tong and Kong Ming Ming also realized that something was wrong. Although it was not very obvious, they could still see the difference if they looked carefully. It's really not Lin Yi. Damn it. This forest is so dense that there's not even a place to stand. Normally, there shouldn't be anyone here. Where did this guy come from? I was almost misled by him. If I had followed the wrong person, all my efforts would have been in vain. Meng Tong secretly rejoiced. At that moment, Kong Ming Ming suddenly slapped his thigh and said, Wrong. This guy is Lin Yi. You've all been deceived by him. What do you mean? Meng Tong and Murong Zhan were stunned at the same time. Chapter 40-50. That's right. I still remember the last time Southern Skygate and Yuzha deliberately called Lin Yi out. So that's what happened. If he really wanted to, it's not difficult for us cultivators to change a fake face at the last moment. Murong Zhan also came to a sudden realization. Meng Tong's eyes lit up when he heard that. So, this guy is really Lin Yi? That's right. This place is so remote that no one would come here. Besides, forging is a matter of life and death. It's reasonable for him to change a fake identity for concealment. While they were talking, Lin Yi had gone directly to the secret base of the King of Rags. Now his mind was focused on forging, and he didn't notice the abnormality in the sky at all. Seeing that Lin Yi suddenly went into a hidden cave after walking around outside for a long time, Kong Ming and the others were relieved and said excitedly, "This is definitely right. This cave should be the place where he forged. Heh. Lin Yi's dead for sure now that we've found such a big flaw. Let's wait for a while. Wait for him to start forging, then we will sneak attack together." Brother Meng Tong is now a master in the middle stage of foundation establishment. Together with the few of us, I don't believe that he can escape alive with so many people ganging up on him. Kong Ming smiled with a confident face. Meng Tong was not in a hurry. He signaled Kong Ming to let the flying spirit beast land, and ordered, "Don't rush. This is a rare opportunity. We have to make sure that nothing goes wrong. Let's stick to the previous discussion. Morong Zhan and I will watch here first. Kong Ming, you go call Dongfang Badeo and Zhong Pingliang here. We have more people, in case he escapes again." "Okay, I'll go get them now." This time Lin Yi is looking for death, looking for such a narrow cave with no way out. Then we five will block the entrance. He won't escape even if he dies. Kong Ming replied with a smile. Kong Ming was about to leave. Morongzhen suddenly said, "We can also inform Yu Zhao and Southern Skygate. Tell them that Lin Yi is Lin Air. They're not exactly the same kind of people as us, but they're Lin Yi's sworn enemies. Just in case something happens to us, they'll be double insurance." Kong Ming and Meng Tong looked at each other and nodded. Ha. Well said, Lin Yi. Today we will see how you die." They immediately split up. After receiving the news from Kong Ming, Zhong Pingliang suddenly became anxious. From the beginning to the end, he was the one who knew the latest, and these people only came to inform him when he was ready to take action. Now, even if he wanted to remind Lin Yi, there was no time and opportunity. Zhong Pingliang lowered his head, and his face seemed to be uncertain. Kong Ming couldn't help but squint his eyes in doubt. "What? You don't want to go?" "Go. Of course I will go. Such a good opportunity for revenge. How can I not go?" Zhong Pingliang suddenly raised his head and said, although he couldn't warn Lin Yi in advance, it was better to go than not to go. At worst, he would expose his identity and counterattack. "That's good. You go now and call the old bastard Dongfang Badeo. I will go to the soaring pavilion to greet Yu Zhao in Southern Skygate. I will come back immediately to take you there," Kong Ming ordered. He immediately rode the flying spirit beast and flew away. Zhong Pingliang responded, but he couldn't help but worry for Lin Yi. During this time, he didn't have much contact with Lin Yi. He didn't know what Lin Yi's strength was now, but these people who were ready to attack him, the strength of this lineup was not simple. Although Zhong Pingliang had absolute confidence in Lin Yi's strength, it was limited to the premise of one-on-one. After all, Lin Yi was just a newcomer. No matter how strong his strength was, there was a limit. In the midst of anxiety, Kong Ming had gone to the soaring pavilion and returned. He took him and Dongfang Badeo to meet Meng Tong and Morong Zhan. All the people were in place. "Let's not delay. Let's do it." As the one with the highest strength, Meng Tong naturally took the lead and entered the cave. Morong Zhan and the others followed behind him in a single file. The safer way was to wait for Yu Zhao in Southern Skygate. At that time, maybe even a master of the Golden Core stage like Nan Tianba would be there, so it would be safe to deal with Lin Yi. However, after killing people, they usually took the treasures and divided the spoils. After all, they were not on the same side. If they really waited for Nan Tianba, even if there was something good on Lin Yi, they wouldn't have a chance to take it. It was better to hurry up and get rid of Lin Yi before Yu Zhao and the others arrived. Anyway, with their strength, as long as there were no accidents, it was more than enough to deal with Lin Yi alone. Even if they couldn't get rid of him, they still had Southern Skygate as a backup. Just as Meng Tong and the others stepped into the cave, the tattered king, who had already begun to forge, suddenly changed his expression. "Not good. Someone came in?" "How did you know?" Lin Yi was startled. The cave was long and narrow. Even with his senses, He was unable to sense the situation at the entrance, let alone the tattered king's strength. Brother Lin, you might not know this, but my master didn't dig this cave just to find a place to rest. Not only is the spiritual chi abundant and the environment is stable, making it suitable for forging weapons, he has also set up formations everywhere. As long as you merge your divine sense with the formations, you'll be able to sense the situation in every corner of the cave, explained the tattered king. Linny came to a realization and asked, "Who are they? How many are there?" "There are 5 of them, but I'm not sure who they are." The king of junk shook his head and said anxiously, "This is bad. Now that the forging has begun, it's too late to stop. We can't stop halfway, and we can't be affected in any way. Otherwise, all our efforts will be in vain, and so many precious materials will be wasted. Don't worry, leave them to me. You just need to focus on forging weapons." Lin Yi immediately stood up, patted the tattered king's shoulder to comfort him, and walked toward the entrance of the cave. He didn't know who had come in this time, but at this moment, the arrow was knocked on the bow. No matter how strong the other party was, he had to find a way to resist. Indeed, there were people coming, and the jade pendant began to warn him. At the same time, Meng Tong and the others who had groped their way into the cave were amazed. Chapter 4051. How did Lin Yi find such a good place? It looks like it's right next to the spirit jade mine. Pay attention to your feet. Maybe you can pick up some spirit jades. Meng Tong and the others were amazed, but they slowed down and became more cautious. This place is obviously not something that Lin Yi could create alone. If there's a hidden master hiding here, wouldn't it be? Zhong Pingliang said, following Kong Mingming's train of thought. Zhong Pingliang's words made everyone's faces change. If there really was a master here, then they would have to think twice. However, Kong Mingming's face turned sinister. "Master my ass. If there was a master, he would have come out to support Lin Yi. Why are you still hiding?" "That makes sense." Morongjin nodded, agreeing. Zhong Pingliang was secretly annoyed that he didn't scare them away. Just when they were feeling suspicious, a voice came from the depths of the cave. "I was wondering who it was. I didn't expect it to be you guys. You're really haunting me." Lin Yi, Meng Tong, and the others focused their gazes. Seeing that there was no one behind Lin Yi, they all let out sighs of relief and laughed coldly. "Or should we call you Lin Yi II? As expected of the rookie king who loves to show off, you still have the guts to show yourself at a time like this. Tell me, should we say that you're impressed, or should we say that you're stupid?" Lin Yi wasn't surprised that someone had come out. Since these people were able to find this place, they probably already found out who he was. He smiled. "I think it's better for you to say that yourselves. You've been through so much in the past, and you still haven't learned your lesson. How dare you come into a cave to block me? Haha, who gave you guys this much courage, this much boldness?" "This is my courage," Meng Tong harumphed coldly before he even finished his sentence. Without saying a word, his figure suddenly burst forward. In the next moment, his legs carried the power of wind and lightning that could captivate one's mind. The strength of the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage was completely revealed. This kick was determined to succeed, and it went straight for Lin Yi's head. Meng Tong had cultivated the thousand legs technique and was originally a speed expert. After taking the meridian heart-shattering pill, his entire personality had changed. His speed was much faster than before, and it was so fast that people could not help but feel that it was strange. Lin Yi was slightly taken aback. He didn't think that Meng Tong's strength would improve this quickly. Against such a sudden and swift 25 forms of 1,000 kicks, Meng Tong didn't even have time to react. With his current strength, it would be very difficult for him to avoid it. In this narrow cave, the space left for him to move about was too limited. Since he couldn't dodge, he could only face it head-on. Now that he was forced to make a move, how could he block this overbearing 25 styles of 1,000 kicks? In a hurry, Lin Yi did not advance, but retreated instead. He clenched one hand into a fist and instantly condensed a fervent and turbulent fist intent. Before the frenzied fire fist was released, the temperature in the entire cave suddenly rose a lot. A suffocating heat wave hit him in the face. Bang! The 25th style of the Raging Fire Fist clashed with the 25th style of the Thousand Kicks in an instant. The aftermath of the collision of their powerful forces stirred up layers of sand and stones, causing Murong Zhan and the others behind Meng Tong to be covered in dust. This face-to-face, Meng Tong only felt a slight numbness in his leg, and then he was forcefully shaken back. At the same time, Lin Yi, who was opposite him, also shook under the powerful impact of the 25 styles of Thousand Kicks. The two of them exchanged blows. No one was able to gain the upper hand, and they were actually evenly matched. It's really powerful, but it's a pity. You're still going to die today. Although he didn't succeed in one blow, Meng Tong was already mentally prepared for this. He immediately followed up with an even more ferocious 26 styles of Thousand Kicks. At the same time, he shouted to the people behind him, "What are you waiting for? Attack together!" Hearing Meng Tong's shout, Murong Zhan, who was behind him, hurriedly used a cunning phantom finger to coordinate with Meng Tong's 26 styles of Thousand Kicks to attack. However, because they were standing in a straight line, Kong Ming and the others behind him could not coordinate with each other. The cave passage was too narrow. If they attacked together, it was very likely that they would accidentally injure Meng Tong and Murong Zhan before they hit Lin Yi. Even so, Meng Tong had already made up his mind. In his eyes, Lin Yi's strength was at most in the middle stage of the foundation-building realm. It was already very difficult for him to face his 26 styles of Thousand Kicks. It was already very impressive that he could withstand it. On the other hand, Murong Zhan's phantom finger was not very powerful, but it won from a tricky angle. It was a perfect match for the already powerful Thousand Kicks. As long as it went straight for the vital parts, it would be the straw that broke the camel's back. Lin Yi was not moved. As he quickly gathered an extremely powerful genuine qi in his palms, he sneered disdainfully and said, "You're despicable enough, but you're still too weak. You've all suffered losses in my hands, but you don't learn from your mistakes. You're still so stubborn even when you're about to die." Meng Tong and the others laughed hideously. However, before they could finish laughing, everything came to an abrupt end. Lin Yi suddenly attacked with the 24 styles of the Raging Fire 8 trigrams palm. The genuine qi that poured out of his palms instantly danced like wild snakes. It directly passed through his opponent's Thousand Kicks and phantom finger, then turned into a pair of giant palms again. Although it was launched later, it arrived first and hit Meng Tong's chest without any suspense. Puff! Meng Tong spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, like a kite with a broken string, he was sent flying by the palm. Even Murong Zhan and Kong Ming, who were behind Meng Tong, were caught off guard. They were all hit by the palm, one after another, and they all fell to the ground, looking very embarrassed. How is this possible? I've been suffering for so long, and I'm already an expert in the middle stage of the foundation-building realm. How can I still not defeat this kind of country bumpkin? Meng Tong's face was immediately filled with disbelief. His eyes stared at Lin Yi, who was approaching him step by step, and he could not help but murmur. For such a long time, Meng Tong had to suffer the destruction of the meridian heart-shattering pill every day. Being able to quickly improve his strength under such inhuman torture, Meng Tong felt that he had been reborn. He was not an existence that ordinary cultivators like Lin Yi could compare with. It should have been easy for him to defeat Lin Yi at the same level. However, he did not expect the reality to be so cruel. After his strength soared, he was confident that he would win for the first time. He did not even hesitate to ask Murong Zhan to cooperate with him to launch a sneak attack, but in the end, he was knocked down by Lin Yi with one move. His ending was almost the same as before. This was too weird and ironic, right? Chapter 4052. After a pause, Linny glanced at everyone with evil intentions. Speaking of which, have you guys played football before? Why don't we play? Football? Kong Ming and the others' eyelids twitched at the same time. Asterisk. Without waiting for them to react, Lin Yi raised his leg and kicked Meng Tong, mercilessly sending him flying several meters back. Meng Tong, who had lost his soul, didn't even have the strength to make a proper movement to resist. This time, Not only was Meng Tong at the front unlucky, but even Morong Zhan and the others, who hadn't reacted in time, suffered with him. After one kick, another followed. Lin treated Meng Tong like a football and kicked him out of the cave. Morong Zhan, Kang Xiaoming, and the others were in an even worse state. Not only did they have to piss their pants, but they also couldn't escape the fate of being used as a human shield. Although they weren't injured directly, they all had bruises all over their faces. What the F***ck? This was football. After being toyed with by Lin Yi, Kang Mingming and the others wanted to die. They wanted to fight to the death several times, but Lin Yi controlled the rhythm and didn't give them a chance to stand up. In such a narrow passage, if they were to fall, fighting to the death would be wishful thinking. Among them, only Zhong Pingliang, who was at the back, escaped. Not only did he not suffer because of Lin Yi's intentional care, but he also deliberately blocked the escape route of the people in front of him. Without a trace, Lin Yi wouldn't have the chance to kick them so happily otherwise. After being kicked out of the cave, not only Meng Tong, but also Kang Mingming and the others couldn't stand up anymore. Not to mention fighting Lin Yi. Even if they wanted to run, Lin Yi wouldn't give them the chance. Lin Yi looked around and said lightly, "In the wilderness, there's no one around. It's a good place to hide a corpse, don't you think?" Kang Xiaoming and the others shivered in fright. They came here with only one goal in mind, to kill Lin Yi. They never thought that with so many of them, they would end up in a situation where Lin Yi could do whatever he wanted. "You! How dare you? Do you know what the crime is for newbies to kill each other?" Kang Mingming and the others quickly said. Lin Yi shook his head indifferently and smiled. "I don't know, but no one will find out anyway. Since you came to kill me, I'll kill you instead. There should be nothing to complain about, right? Everyone is an adult. We should be open-minded and reasonable. Don't you think so?" As soon as he finished speaking, Lin Yi was about to make his move. They'd been hindering him time and time again, and he really wanted to kill these people, especially with Meng Tong's shocking rate of growth. If he continued to let them live, there would be no end to their troubles. He might as well go all the way. He might as well kill them all. Anyway, there was no one else here. After killing them and burying their bodies, no one would know. Even if the law enforcement hall investigated later, they wouldn't directly find Lin Yi. The risk was not great. One by one. "Let's start with you, Great Deacon Kong." Murderous intent was revealed. Lin Yi walked slowly to Kang Mingming, which really scared Kang Ming so much that he almost peed his pants. Dongfang Badeo was also scared. He shouldn't have come. From the beginning to the end, he had to be buried with them. It was really bad luck. Watching Lin Yi's hand coming to his neck, Kang Mingming was scared to retreat on the ground. After rolling and crawling away for a few feet, he had an idea and shouted, "Lin Yi, don't be arrogant. We came here to find you. There are other people who know. He is coming. If you dare to kill us, you can't escape punishment yourself. At that time, you will have to be buried with us." After listening to this, Lin Yi couldn't help but frown. He noticed that Zhong Pingliang was also secretly nodding to himself. If no one knew, he could kill them here. But now, if he killed these people, he would have to be buried with them. There was no way. Seeing Lin Yi's murderous intent finally converged, Kang Mingming quickly gritted his teeth and rolled up. He didn't dare to say any more nonsense to stimulate Lin Yi. Before the other party changed his mind, he quickly sat on the flying spirit beast not far away and prepared to leave. With Kang Mingming taking the lead, other people such as Morong Zhan and others also followed suit. They took Meng Tong, who was scared out of his wits, and hurriedly climbed on the flying spirit beast to escape. Seeing these people fleeing in panic, Lin Yi could only stop, although he was unwilling. Otherwise, if he really killed these people, he would be happy, but he would have to pay with his life. At that time, even if Shanghai Tianhua came forward, he might not be able to save him. Inexplicably, these people know the place where I forge. It's not a big trouble. Lin Yi had a headache. Due to the use of many rare materials, there weren't many precedents that could be used as reference. Even the king of junk couldn't be sure how long this forging would take. According to his past experience, it wouldn't be a short time. If Kang Mingming and the others came back to wreak havoc, he couldn't let his guard down. The only good news was that these people's backers were either dead or missing. If they wanted to face Lin Yi with their own strength, they would only end up like today. They were purely looking for trouble, so there was no need to worry too much about it. At that moment, a few whistling sounds came from above. Then, 3 figures descended from the sky and appeared in front of Lin Yi with unfriendly expressions. They were Nan Tianba, Nan Tianmin, and Yu Zha. Second Lin, we finally caught you. My first and second martial uncles are here. Let's see how you're going to escape. Wahahaha. Yu Zha laughed arrogantly. Previously, when they received Kong Mingming's report, they didn't believe it. After the incident at the extreme North Island, although they hated Lin Yi, they didn't believe that Lin Yi was second Lin. In comparison, Kong Mingming was more suspicious. But now, Lin second was standing right in front of them. It didn't matter who his other identity was. All they needed to know was that Lin second was the killer of their third brother, Nan Tianyong, and that Lin second had the star inkstone on him. Seeing the 3 people descending from the sky, Lin Yi was shocked. Previously, Kong Mingming said that someone knew they were here, but he didn't think that the people who knew were these 3 enemies. This matter was serious. Chapter 4053. As for Southern Skygate and Nan Tianba, the former was at the Foundation Establishment Perfection stage, and the latter was an unfathomable Gold Core stage expert. If Lin Yi wanted to face such a strong enemy by himself, he had no chance of winning. Even the possibility of retreating was very small because the other side would not give him the chance to secretly prepare a killing move. Lin second, you really made me look for you. Third brother has died for so long. He can finally rest in peace today. Nan Tianba's body emitted an indescribable killing intent. Even the birds and beasts within 100 feet of him scattered in fright. Southern Sky Gate had a sinister expression as he said, "Be a bit more sensible and hand over the star inkstone. I can make the decision to leave your corpse intact, but it doesn't matter if you don't want to say it. At most, I'll spend a bit of energy to use the soul-searching technique. But if I do that, you'll be in trouble. Have you heard of human swine? I'll cut off your arms and legs, dig out your eyes, and cut off your tongue. I'll make you beg for death." Each one was more overbearing than the last. Lin Yi's heart trembled. His brain quickly turned to think of a way to deal with them, but his expression remained unchanged. He curled his lips and said, "So you're saying that I have to die today? Haha, could it be that you're still dreaming of living past today? You even asked such a stupid question. Don't you think you're too stupid?" Yu Zha laughed wildly. After suppressing his anger for so long under the hands of Nan Tianba and Southern Skygate, he finally found a punching bag. Then, Yu Zha turned to Nan Tianba and Southern Skygate and asked, "Martial uncles, although this person is Lin Yi without a doubt, this disciple thinks it's necessary to find out his other identity. If he really is Lin Yi, then we'll be better prepared to face Hongzhong and the others in the future." Although Kong Mingming had already said that Lin Yi was Lin Yi, it was still necessary to confirm it with his own eyes. Nan Tianba originally wanted to kill Lin Yi to avenge his third brother, but after thinking about it, he nodded and said, "Fine. As for the whereabouts of the star inkstone and his other identity, just use the soul-searching technique on him. There's no need to waste time with him." All right. The Southern Heavenly Gate immediately agreed. Using the soul-searching art would damage one's divine sense, but compared to the bountiful rewards of the star inkstones, this small price was negligible. "Hold on, you don't have to do anything. I can tell you directly that I am Lin Yi," Lin Yi said as he reached out and took off the 1,000 silk mask, revealing his true colors. Nan Tianba and the other two's eyes became serious. Seeing this, Yu Zha was overjoyed. He turned to Nan Tianba and the Southern Skygate and said, "I knew it. This little brat was without a doubt Lin Heir. However, your acting was too good, causing me to be punished by the 2 martial uncles. Today, I'll make you pay back 100 times over." He recalled his experience at the northernmost island, where Nan Tianba and the Southern Heaven Gate fought. It was Lin Heir and Lin Yi. To them, this was a double grudge. Just as well, we can settle old and new grudges at the same time. Now that Hongzhong has gone far away to Middle Island, I want to see who else can save you. Second brother, what are you waiting for? Hurry up and do it. Nan Tianba clenched his teeth and said. The southern sky gate nodded. He took a step forward and reached out his hand to grab Lin Yi. Even though Lin Yi was an expert at the peak of the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, there was still a huge gap between their cultivation levels. Unless he used a trump card like the Pill-Fire True Chi Bomb, his chances of winning against the Southern Skygate were slim. However, at this moment, Lin Yi suddenly smiled and said calmly, Do you really think that since Old Hong isn't here, no one can save me? What do you mean? Who else can save you? Why don't you tell us? It's not a wise choice to play tricks on us at a time like this. It will only make your death worse. The South Heaven Gate came to a stop and said with a hideous grin, Trying to be mysterious? Do I look like such a senseless person? Why don't you just say it? The person who can save me is here, and he's right in the middle of you. Lin Yi stared at one person with a burning gaze. It was Yuzha. Being stared at by Lin Yi made Yuzha's hair stand on end. Although he didn't know what the problem was, he had a bad feeling about this. You mean Yuzha? Nan Tianba and the Southern Sky Gate couldn't help but feel suspicious. The way they looked at Yuzha also carried a sense of judgment. Although they were martial nephews, they didn't have much contact with Yuzha before. They only relied on them after the Southern Sky Gate was killed, so they couldn't be considered to know him well. How is that possible? I want to tear him to pieces to avenge my master. How could I save him? Martial uncles, don't fall for this brat's trick. Yuzha hurriedly denied. The Southern Sky Gate reacted quickly and said, Brat, don't look down on us too much. You actually said that Yuzha would save you. Do you think we'll believe you with such a lowly attempt to sow discord? Do you think we're pigs? That's right. Even if Yuzha had such thoughts, with his weak strength, wanting to save you in front of my eyes is simply a fool's dream. Nan Tianba also coldly laughed. Martial uncles are wise. This brat still hasn't given up on his evil intentions and wants to sow discord between martial nephews and the two martial uncles. He should be torn to pieces. Yuzha let out a sigh of relief and quickly added insult to injury. Seeing the three people's expressions become more and more unfriendly, Lin Yi remained calm. You've misunderstood. I didn't say Yuzha would directly save me. What I meant was, he will die in my place. What? You want me to die in your place? Is there something wrong with your head? Yuzha was stunned for a moment before laughing out loud. However, the bad feeling in his heart that he couldn't get rid of became even stronger. At the same time, Nan Tianba and the Southern Sky Gate both looked at Lin Yi like he was an idiot. They thought that Lin Yi had been scared to the point of losing his mind and was starting to talk nonsense. Doesn't it sound ridiculous? However, after you watch this, I think you'll change your mind. Lin Yi smiled. He took out his phone and pulled out a video he had taken earlier. What kind of bullshit is this? Nan Tianba and the other two couldn't help but be stunned. No matter how knowledgeable they were, it was impossible for them to have seen the development of smartphones in the mortal world. They immediately looked at each other in dismay. Chapter 4054. Why was this thing similar to the legendary Xiang Chicken? Yuzha, why are you in here? Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate asked curiously. I don't know either. Who knows what kind of sorcery this brat is using? Yuzha himself was also at a loss. Looking at the familiar scene in the video, his heart started to beat wildly uncontrollably. Following this, the scene changed. A familiar figure who was on the verge of death appeared, causing Nan Tianba and the South Heaven Gate to open their eyes wide. At this moment, no matter how shocked or slow Yuzha was, he finally reacted. Wasn't this the scene of Nan Tianyong's death? If this continued, wouldn't it be the scene of him killing Nan Tianyong? Yuzha suddenly quivered and finally found the source of the ominous feeling. If Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate were to see the scene of him killing his master, even if he had 10,000 lives, it wouldn't be enough to kill him. You still dare to play tricks? I'll kill you right now and avenge my master. In a moment of desperation, Yuzha suddenly yelled and attacked Lin Yi. Even if he couldn't kill Lin Yi in one go, he had to destroy the unknown thing in Lin Yi's hand first. Otherwise, he would live in fear for the rest of his life. However, Yuzha's attack was still a step too late. The scene of him killing Nan Tianyong with his own hands was clearly seen by Nan Tianba and Southern Skygate. Bang! Lin raised his leg and kicked Yuzha several meters away. The entire place fell into a dead silence. After a while, Nan Tianba's voice, which was filled with anger, finally reached everyone's ears. Yuzha, did you kill third brother? No, no. Martial uncle, I'm innocent. This is all an illusion created by Lin Yi. Don't fall into his trap. Yuzha hurriedly defended himself with sweat dripping down his forehead. Nan Tianba and the South Heaven Gate were infuriated. If this was true, then they had been played like fools by Yuzha from the beginning. However, they had never seen a mobile phone before, and this video came from the hands of their enemy, Lin Yi. They had to carefully weigh the credibility of the video. But Lin Yi smiled faintly and said, "Isn't it too late to quibble now? With your eyesight, it should be easy for you to determine whether this video is real or fake. Besides, don't you know the soul-searching technique? Whether it's real or fake, we'll know once we try." At this point, Nan Tianba and Southern Skygate were already 70 to 80% convinced. Being able to reach the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm and even the Gold Core realm, there was no need to doubt their shrewdness. Especially when it came to something as important as Nan Tianyong's death, trying to deceive them was easier said than done. Especially Nan Tianba, who had seen much of the world, immediately nodded his head. This is the Xiang chicken of the secular world? I've heard of these things. I didn't expect you to have them. Seeing the two of them looking at him with unkind eyes, Yuzha's legs immediately went soft. He hysterically continued to quibble, "Martial uncles, don't believe him. How could I do something as disgraceful as killing my master? He's clearly trying to sow discord. If he used the soul-searching technique on me, even if I was wrongly accused, I would still become a cripple." Hearing this, Southern Skygate coldly said, "Don't worry. Even if I don't use the soul-searching technique, I can still determine whether it's real or fake. Third brother's corpse is still in the law enforcement hall's ice cellar. As long as I compare the scars on third brother's body, the truth will naturally come to light. If the final result is that you're deceiving me, Yuzha, just wait to be cut into pieces. I will definitely use you as a living sacrifice to third brother's soul in heaven." Nan Tianba's voice seemed to come out from between his teeth. The murderous intent in it made Yuzha tremble in fear. At this moment, Yuzha didn't know how to quibble anymore. He fell to the ground in a daze, his eyes filled with hatred as he stared at Lin Yi. At this moment, Southern Skygate suddenly said, "Big brother, even if Yuzha really killed third brother, we can't let Lin Yi go so easily. We still haven't taken revenge for what happened in the extreme North Island. Furthermore, he still has the star ink stone that I want." To Southern Skygate, including third brother Nan Tianyong's death, everything else was just fleeting clouds. Only the star ink stone was his target. "That's fine. Then we'll take this brat away as well. It won't be too late to kill him after we've figured everything out." Nan Tianba's only thought now was to find out who killed third brother. Seeing that Southern Skygate was about to make another move, Lin Yi immediately said, "Catch me? Have you thought about the consequences of this? Miss Shangguan also knows that I'm here. If you don't catch the murderer and make a move on me, think about the consequences yourself." "Oh, that's right. Pavilion Master Shangguan personally promised me that I can look for him if I need anything. As disciples of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, don't you need to ask him for instructions?" Hearing this, the eyelids of Nan Tianba and the Southern Heaven Gate twitched. Shangguan Lan'er was nothing much, as she was just a young mistress with no real strength. However, Shangguan Tianhua was someone who could easily crush them to death with a single finger. If what Lin Yi said was true, and they took Lin Yi away now, it was equivalent to publicly slapping Shanghai Tianhua in the face. The consequences would be unimaginable. Although Southern Skygate didn't want to believe these words, he remembered that Lin Yi was invited to Shanghai Laner's birthday banquet as a newcomer. Especially after the recent kidnapping incident, there were rumors that Shanghai Tianhua treated Lin Yi differently. This meant that these words were not fabricated. This risk was not something that Southern Skygate could take, nor could Nan Tianba. After hesitating for a moment, Nan Tianba clenched his teeth and coldly snorted, "Humph, I'll let you go for now. Let's go." After saying this, Nan Tianba grabbed the dejected Yuzha with one hand and jumped onto the flying spiritual beast. Southern Skygate looked at Lin Yi unwillingly, but in the end, he didn't dare to make a move and bitterly followed. Seeing Nan Tianba and the other two fly away, Lin Yi finally let out a sigh of relief. Facing a golden core stage and a foundation establishment stage expert alone, even though they didn't really fight, the pressure was not something an ordinary person could handle. He'd probably be a corpse right now if he'd said anything wrong in that conversation. It was fortunate that he'd been smart enough to take a video of Yuzha killing his own Shifu. Otherwise, he'd be dead for sure. Chapter 4055. Who are you? The king of tattered rags was shocked to see an unfamiliar face. Don't be nervous, it's me. I've always been wearing a mask. This is my true appearance. I'm really sorry for hiding it from you. Linny explained. Hey, it's you, Brother Lin. It's okay. It's okay. I can also make a mask that can change one's appearance. It's understandable that you have to keep a trick up your sleeve. The tattered king smiled. Linny nodded and asked with concern. I've already taken care of the trouble outside. It didn't affect your forging, right? No, it's still the warm-up phase of forging. Although we can't stop halfway, at least for the next few days, we just have to wait patiently on the side. There's nothing to do for now. The tattered king said. That's good. I'm afraid that these people will ruin our plans. Linny sighed in relief. He didn't stay idle after that. He sat on the side and discussed the subsequent forging matters with the tattered king. This time, other than forging weapons for himself, he had another task, which was to observe and learn. No matter what, he was still a blacksmith. He should have some improvement in this aspect. Otherwise, he couldn't come back to the tattered king for help every time he had a need for forging weapons in the future. At the same time, Yuzha, who was brought back by Nan Tianba, wasn't in a good mood. The three of them went to the law enforcement hall to examine the corpse and quickly came to a conclusion. Third brother Nan Tianyong was indeed killed by Yuzha. Because of the appearance, Nan Tianyong didn't examine it carefully. Now that he saw it, he knew that he was tricked by Yuzha. The evidence was conclusive. This time, Yuzha was completely unable to explain himself. The last trace of hope in his heart was also annihilated. This time, he was completely disheartened. You treacherous scum. How could third brother have a disciple like you? He must have been blind. I will cut you into 1,000 pieces tomorrow. I will be a living sacrifice for third brother's soul in heaven. Nan Tianba was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. No matter who killed Nan Tianyong, he could accept it. However, it was Nan Tianyong's disciple who killed him. This was too intolerable. They wouldn't even be able to die in peace. Especially since he and the Southern Skygate had been tricked by a nobody like Yuzha for so long. Now that he thought about it, he couldn't help but feel embarrassed. How embarrassing. A traitorous disciple killing his own master, no matter what era it was. It would be a huge scandal no matter where it was. Although Nan Tianba and the South Heaven Gate did not want anyone to know about it, there was no such thing as an airtight wall in this world. The moment they had conducted the autopsy, the news had already spread. In less than half a day, the news of Yuzha killing his master had already spread throughout the three great pavilions. In the streets and alleys, almost everyone was talking about this matter. First, Su Lingchong attempted to rape her and escaped, followed by the Shangguan Laner kidnapping incident. Now, the huge scandal of Yuzha murdering his teacher had been exposed. The three great pavilions, or more accurately, the Soaring Sky Pavilion, had been hit by one wave after another. However, even if everyone knew about it, it did not change Nan Tianba's determination to kill Yuzha. This was his family's matter, even if it was the three great pavilions and the law enforcement hall. They had no right to interfere. Furthermore, it had already been known by others. Nan Tianba decided to no longer hide it. He publicly opened a sacrificial altar on the Soaring Sky Pavilion's plaza and, in front of countless people, sacrificed Yuzha to his third brother, Nan Tianyong. To Nan Tianba, although doing this might attract criticism, it was the best way to wash away the shame that Yuzha had brought to his family. The news spread like wildfire. By noon the next day, the Soaring Sky Pavilion's plaza was already filled with hundreds and thousands of people. Not only were there disciples from the Soaring Sky Pavilion, disciples from the other two pavilions also came to watch the show. However, under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Nan Tianba and the Southern Skygate brothers suddenly stood everyone up. There was no other way. Yuzha had disappeared. Looking at the empty basement, Nan Tianba's domineering aura caused the three-corpse god to explode. However, at the same time, even he himself felt that it was unimaginable. From yesterday until now, he had not taken even half a step out of the room above. In this completely sealed basement, the only exit was right under his feet. It was surrounded by a tight defensive array, so it was impossible to escape from any other place. However, such an impossible thing had happened right in front of his eyes. Yuzha, who was supposed to close his eyes and wait for his death, had disappeared from the face of the earth without any warning. If it wasn't for the fact that he knew his big brother's temperament, Southern Skygate would have suspected that his big brother's heart had softened and secretly released Yuzha. However, this was impossible. Regarding the death of his third brother, Nan Tianba could only let Yuzha suffer a few more cuts and die a more miserable death. He definitely could not let him live. After a long time, Nan Tianba faintly said, "It seems like an expert saved him." "What?" Southern Skygate was shocked. "Big brother, you personally guarded this place, who could hide from your eyes and ears and save Yuzha from the basement. That's not possible, right?" "I also don't think it's possible, but there is always someone better than you out there. The truth is right here. What else can you say?" Nan Tianba helplessly said. This time, Southern Skygate was also speechless. In his eyes, Nan Tianba was a gold core expert and was extremely strong. However, in the three great pavilions, there were still many people who were stronger than Nan Tianba. What the two of them couldn't understand was that in these past few months, Yuzha had always been trying to please them. When did he manage to hook up with such a strong person? Yuzha's disappearance immediately caused a huge uproar. Not only did it cause Nan Tianba and the Southern Skygate brothers to lose face, it was also the second case of someone escaping and disappearing after Su Lingqiu. The time between the two cases was less than a month. In the secret underground room, Yuzha slowly opened his eyes. Borrowing the dim light to look around, he suddenly trembled and begged, "Martial uncle, I beg you to spare my little life. It was Disciple's fault that I had evil thoughts. Disciple deserves to die. Disciple is worse than a dog, but Disciple is still useful to you. As long as you spare Disciple this time. In this life, no, in the next life, the life after that, I will work like a horse for you." Halfway through his words, he was suddenly interrupted by a black cloaked figure in the shadows. "Save it. I'm not Nan Tianba. You don't need to be afraid. I won't kill you, and I won't hand you over to Nan Tianba." Chapter 4056. Now that he had woken up, Yuzha instinctively thought that he was still in that secret room. He had never thought that he had already been moved without anyone noticing. Even though it was still an underground secret room, it was no longer the same room he had been in before. "Then, who are you? Why did you bring me here?" Yuzha rejoiced in his heart, but immediately became vigilant again. Could it be that he had just left the wolf's den and entered the tiger's den? The dark and gloomy secret room in front of him was even more indestructible than Nan Tianba's, and there was nowhere to escape to. If this mysterious person really wanted to save him, why would he bring him to this kind of place? "You're quite vigilant. It seems that I didn't save you for nothing." The mysterious man paused for a moment and suddenly smiled meaningfully. "To be honest, I admire you very much. It's rare to see a person who can kill his own master with his own hands. In terms of temperament, you meet my requirements very well." "What do you mean?" Yuzha became more cautious. He inconspicuously moved backwards, trying to stay as far away from this mysterious person as possible. He had indeed killed Nan Tianyong with his own hands, but he still felt very guilty about this matter. Normally, he did not dare and did not want to take the initiative to think about this matter. However, from the mysterious person's attitude, this person seemed to admire him very much. Wasn't he a pervert? Seeing Yuzha's cautious expression, the mysterious person did not mind and lightly said, "It's nothing. I only saved you because I admire you. Otherwise, You would have been cut into pieces by Nan Tianba in front of everyone. However, don't think about running away now that you're here. That's not realistic. Also, I believe that you're not stupid enough to go out and seek death. After saying this, the mysterious person's killing intent almost materialized for a moment. Even if it was only for a short moment, the shock it gave Yu Jia was unforgettable. This mysterious person in front of him. He was not an existence that Nan Tianba could fight against. Yu Jia took a deep breath and finally recognized his current situation. His previous thoughts were not wrong. He had indeed just left the wolf's den and had immediately fallen into an even more dangerous tiger's den. What does your excellency want me to do? Yu Jia stared at the figure in the darkness and asked. The mysterious person did not speak and threw something over. It landed in front of Yu Jia and made a clanking sound. Yu Jia was shocked. He thought that it was a hidden weapon that could kill someone, but in the next moment, his eyes suddenly widened as he stared at the stone in front of him, unable to move his eyes away. After a long time, Yu Jia swallowed a few times, his face filled with disbelief as he stammered. This is star ink stone? Your eyesight isn't bad. There's no mistaking it. This is staring stone. However, half of it has already been used up. The mysterious man nodded calmly. Used half? Yu Jia couldn't help but stare blankly when he heard this. He observed carefully under the dim light. Only then did he discover that this piece of star ink stone was not the one he had seen at the Hong merchant house. Not only was its shape different, its color and foundation were clearly weaker. Even so, this was a treasure that Yu Jia dreamed of. The star ink stone could allow one to perfectly break through to the most powerful golden core stage, and even if one used half of the star ink stone, the supplementary effects wouldn't be too bad. Seeing Yu Jia's greedy expression, as if he wanted nothing more than to swallow the star ink stone into his stomach, the mysterious person laughed. Not only will you be able to keep your life, but this half of the staring stone will also be yours. How about it? Although Yu Jia's mind was already clouded by the star ink stone, he hadn't completely lost his reason. Hearing this, he immediately hesitated and struggled. Don't worry, I won't let you suffer a loss. This piece of star ink stone is only an advance payment to you, that's all. The mysterious person paused, and then his tone changed. Of course, if you don't agree, that's fine. I won't kill you. I will only return the item to its rightful owner and send you back to the hands of Nan Tianba. Yu Jia quivered and remembered that with his current situation, he didn't dare to go out. Without the protection of this mysterious person, his fate would be death by 1,000 cuts. Thinking of this, Yu Jia didn't hesitate any longer. He gritted his teeth and said, Fine, I agree. Then what do you want me to do now? The mysterious person wasn't surprised at this and said calmly, There's nothing I want you to do right now. You just need to focus on cultivating here and quickly increase your strength. When I need you, I will naturally notify you. I understand. No matter what, many thanks for your kindness in saving my life. In the future, if you have any orders, I will definitely go through fire and water and offer my life to you. Yu Jia immediately swore and flattered. Unexpectedly, the mysterious person said mockingly, You don't need to do this with me. You're someone who can even kill his own master without blinking. Do you think I will believe your cheap oath? Remember, never play tricks in front of me. If this happens again, I will make you regret not dying at the hands of Nan Tianba. After saying this, the mysterious person's figure flickered and disappeared right in front of Yu Jia's eyes. It was a simple sentence, but the feeling of being seen through was even more frightening to Yu Jia than the physical killing intent from before. He was filled with lingering fear. However, Yu Jia's attention quickly shifted back to the star ink stone. All sorts of experiences had made him deeply understand that only when one's own strength was powerful, everything else was fleeting. This star ink stone was a cheat that could allow him to ascend the path of the strong. Yu Jia's disappearance had caused a huge uproar in the 3 great pavilions. However, Lin Yi knew nothing about it. During this period of time, he had stayed with the tattered king and focused on his great business of forging. 7 days had passed since Kong Mingming and Nan Tianba had come looking for trouble. As early as 3 days ago, the most basic warm-up stage had already ended. Now, It was time for the most crucial part of forging. The more powerful the divine weapon, the higher the requirements for the forging master. There couldn't be the slightest mistake during the forging process. Even if there was a slight deviation of half a centimeter, the final result might be completely different from what one had expected. Extremely rare materials such as the 10,000-year tree crystal and the ancient pure soil would also be burnt to ashes. From then on, they would become a pile of waste, which made one sigh with regret. Not only was Lin Yi unwilling to see such a tragic result, but the tattered king, who regarded forging as his life, was even more unwilling to see it. For the past few months, the tattered king had spent a lot of effort on forging. Even compared to Lin Yi, who had provided many extremely rare materials, the amount he had spent was no less. Chapter 4057. Since the beginning of the forging process, the king of Junk had been extremely tense. He was personally in charge of every step of the process and could not afford to make any mistakes. Lin Yi, on the other hand, wasn't idling around. It was a rare opportunity to observe the entire process from such a close distance, and in just a short 7 days, he'd already learned quite a bit from the King of Garbage's teachings. In these 7 days, there were no deviations in the crafting process. Everything was going according to the script that the King of Junk had planned beforehand. The anxiety in his heart slowly faded away, and he started to feel more at ease. He was glad that he hadn't found the wrong person. Everything was difficult at the beginning. Since they had passed the most important beginning stage, the forging process was already half a success. Linny thought that everything would go smoothly. However, on the 8th day, everything came to an abrupt end. That's it. Looking at the gradually calming casting pool, Lin Yi was dumbfounded. This was completely different from the plan that the King of Junk had told him about. At this moment, even the King of Junk himself was going crazy. Although he could not accurately predict how long the forging process would take, it was only the 8th day. According to the experience of many blacksmiths, the more powerful a divine weapon was, the longer the forging process would take. As long as a divine weapon was of a slightly higher grade, it was normal for it to take several months or even several years. But this time, the forging process had used extremely rare materials like the 10,000-year-old tree crystal and the ancient sacred soil. No matter what, it couldn't be weaker than other weapons, right? However, it was an indisputable fact that the casting pool had calmed down. Normally, such a situation would only occur when the final weapon was formed. However, it was only the 8th day. Looking at the lump in the forging pool, even a ghost wouldn't believe that it was a fully formed godly weapon. What should we do now? Lin Yi's mouth twitched. He turned to look at the King of Junk. This thing, should I use it to smash people? Impossible. 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 The tattered king hammered his head as he paced back and forth around the forging pool, mumbling to himself. Linny couldn't help but worry that the guy might just fall into the foundry when he saw how crazy he was. That would really kill him. Lin Yi, on the other hand, found it inconceivable as well. The whole plan was thought up by the King of Garbage alone, but he'd analyzed and discussed it with Lin Yi in detail during the process. To ensure the success rate of the forging, he'd done a lot of preparation beforehand. Lin Yi had specially gone to the far North Island to bid for those high-level casting materials. There was only one ultimate use for it, and that was to ensure the stability and success rate of the crafting process. This was one of the reasons why the Crappy King asked Lin Yi to take out a couple of Sky-class weapons he didn't use and put them into the crafting process. Who would have thought that even after making such thorough preparations, it would still end up like this? This? Lin Huang asked. This? The King of the Tatters. We failed. At this moment, the King of Junk squatted down. He stuck his face to the edge of the casting pool, which really shocked Lin Yi. Is this guy really going to take things too hard? Although the casting pool has calmed down, the temperature is still shockingly high. However, the temperature was frighteningly high. Even a foundation establishment expert would not be able to endure it. Just when Lin Yi was about to stop him, the King of Junk's eyes suddenly lit up. No, I know the reason. We haven't failed yet. Haven't failed yet? Lin Yi was stunned. Yes, we haven't failed yet. To be precise, we haven't completely failed yet. The king of junk instantly became 100 times more energetic. Pointing at the casting pool, he explained to Lin Yi, "You'll know if you look closely. This pool has not completely cooled down, and the god weapon has not been completely shaped. It seems that if we don't find a way to solve the problem, it will remain in this lukewarm state. We still have a way to fix it." Hearing this, Lin Yi could not help but feel refreshed. After observing for a while, he confirmed that the god weapon was still changing at a speed that was hard to be seen by the naked eye. He immediately asked, "What problem should we solve?" "Solve the conflict between the attributes of the 10,000-year tree crystal and the ancient pure land." The king of junk said with certainty, "Brother Lin, I've told you before that the most basic requirement for casting is that the attributes of all the casting materials must be compatible. Even if they are incompatible, we must find a way to neutralize them with other auxiliary materials. This is the problem we're facing now." "How could it be? The 10,000-year tree crystal is of the wood attribute, and the ancient pure land is of the earth attribute. How could there be a conflict between the two?" Lin Yi asked curiously. It was common sense that wood and earth were mutually reinforcing. The king of junk shook his head and said, "You're wrong. These two materials are too rare. It's difficult to understand their specific origins, so we've all made a mistake on this most basic question. The 10,000-year tree crystal is of the wood attribute, but the ancient pure land is not of the pure earth attribute. If it's not of the earth attribute, then what is it?" Lin Yi was puzzled. Even if he did not understand its origin, how could the standard soil of the ancient pure land be of any other attribute? "I've read about the ancient pure land in my master's notes. Although its attributes were not clearly mentioned, it was mentioned that the ancient pure land usually only appears in the craters of ancient volcanoes." The king of junk said excitedly, "Now you understand. Although the ancient pure land has the earth attribute, it also has the fire attribute. Therefore, to a certain extent, there is a conflict between the attributes of the 10,000-year tree crystal and the wood attribute of the 10,000-year tree crystal." Only then did Lin Yi understand. He nodded and said, "No wonder such a strange situation occurred. Under normal circumstances, if it was a simple conflict of attributes, it would have completely failed by now. It turns out that the ancient pure land's earth and fire attributes are both conflicting and compatible with the wood attribute of the 10,000-year tree crystal." "That's right. Fortunately, my mistake wasn't too fatal. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have a chance to remedy it, and I would be even more ashamed to face you, Brother Lin," the king of junk said awkwardly. Chapter 4058. Don't worry, Brother Lin. Since we've found the root of the problem, I'm confident that I can succeed as long as we can solve the problem of the attribute conflict." The king of junk promised. "That's great, but how are we going to solve this problem now?" Lin Yi asked. The process of forging could not be stopped halfway, and with the current situation, the lump inside could not even be considered a semi-finished product. It was even more impossible to take it out now. If everything goes as expected, the forging pool will continue to be in this state. However, to be on the safe side, it's better for me to stay here and keep an eye on it. Therefore, I can only trouble Brother Lin to find some materials to make up for it, so that we can continue forging," the king of junk said as he took out a pen and paper, then listed a list of materials and passed it to Lin Yi. Lin Yi took a glance and asked, "Are these materials common?" "Most of them are common, so we should be able to buy them directly. However, there are two that we'll have to try our luck. Fortunately, we're not in a rush, and I'll find a way to control it. Even if it takes longer, it won't be a problem. Being slow is also a stage of forging, so taking longer might not be a bad thing," the king of junk analyzed. "All right, I'll think of a way to make up for the materials. I'll leave it to you, Brother Wang." Lin Yi immediately set off. Hong Merchant Guild. After Hong Zhong Yuan went to Middle Island to take up his post, it was now Si Haixiao's territory. At this moment, there were two familiar faces in the private room. They were Nan Tianba and Nan Tianmin. "Shopkeeper Si, we have a presumptuous request. We hope you can help us find someone." Nan Tianmin and Nan Tianba looked at each other and pleaded. "Oh? Who? Could it be about Lin Air?" There's no news yet, but I've already sent people to investigate. Si Haishao casually answered as he drank the high-quality spiritual tea. Actually, we already know Lin Er's true identity and his whereabouts. This guy is the Lin I mentioned to you before. However, we're looking for someone else. You've met him once before. He's my unworthy martial nephew, Yu Jia. The Southern Heavenly Gate said awkwardly. He and Nan Tianba had already searched everywhere they could, but they still couldn't find any trace of Yu Jia. They had no choice but to run over to ask Si Haishao for help. After all, Si Haishao was a supervisor. Letting him borrow the eyes and ears of the Honging group to find out Yu Jia's whereabouts was much better than relying on the two of them to run around blindly. Ask about Yu Jia? Don't you know the whereabouts of your own martial nephew? Si Haishao was taken aback. Since we already know that Lin Yi is Lin Yi II, we should think of a way to deal with Lin Yi first. Why bother looking for Yu Jia? Sigh, shopkeeper Si, there's something you don't know. We only learned recently that the culprit that killed third brother wasn't Lin Yi, but Yu Jia's rebellious disciple. The South Heaven Gate briefly explained the recent events to Si Haishao. Such a complicated inside story made Si Haishao click his tongue in wonder. Yu Jia killing his teacher. Although it had caused a lot of commotion recently, it was mainly focused on the three great pavilions. It didn't spread much in the marketplace. Furthermore, he had been busy reorganizing the Hong Chamber of Commerce recently. In order to erase the traces left behind by Hong Zhong's many years of business, he had no time to care about this kind of gossip. I didn't think that this kid would actually be a traitor despite looking so much like a dog. Fine. This shopkeeper will send a message to the old partner of the Hong Ying group who is in charge of the North Island and let him investigate for you. Since the matter has become so big, the eyes and ears in the North Island should take the initiative to pay attention to Yu Jia's whereabouts. After Si Haishao said this, he immediately wrote a note and had someone send a letter with a bird. Since they were both in the North Island, the news spread very quickly. In just the time it took to drink a cup of tea, Si Haishao received a reply. Unfortunately, the other party's reply was that they didn't receive any news regarding Yu Jia's whereabouts. Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate were both extremely depressed. Now that the missing Yu Jia had become the two brothers' laughingstock, if they let him go on like this, the prestige they had established in the soaring sky pavilion would probably be completely gone. Seeing the two of them like this, Si Haishao comforted them. Actually, you don't need to be too discouraged. That kid Yu Jia can hide for a while, but can he hide forever? The Honging group has so many eyes and ears in the North Island. As long as he appears, don't worry about not being able to find him. This is all just a matter of time. Also, isn't that Lin Yi ready-made? Although Yu Jia killed Nan Tianyong, there's still a problem with him. Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate both nodded. We also know that Lin Yi isn't a good person. When he pretended to be second Lin and took away the Star Inkstone, it was actually because he had bad intentions. Everything started because of him. Otherwise, third brother wouldn't have ended up being killed by his own disciple. That's right. So this shopkeeper is prepared to help you deal with him, Si Haishao suddenly said. Huh. The two of them couldn't help but look at each other in surprise. Although Si Haishao had previously agreed to help find second Lin, the perfunctory meaning behind it could be seen even if they were blind. Why did he suddenly take the initiative now? Don't be so surprised. These 2 days, your uncle, Nantion Polaris, just happened to send this shopkeeper a letter. He asked this shopkeeper to help him teach a lesson to an enemy. He made this enemy when he went to the secular world to be a guide. Guess who it is? Si Haishao said with a playful expression. It can't be Lin Yi, right? The two of them instantly looked at each other. That's right. It's this Lin Yi. Speaking of which, this kid is really at odds with your family. In the secular world, he went against your uncle, and now he's going against the two of you. It's really rare to see a newcomer who dares to provoke others like this. Si Haishao laughed. Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate both had an expression as if they had seen a ghost. They immediately reacted and said, since there's a grudge against uncle, then we can't let this kid go. Let's do as shopkeeper Si says and deal with Lin Yi first. Si Haishao nodded and said, now that Hong Zhong has gone to the Middle Island, distant water can't put out a nearby fire. Moreover, it's said that he's also in trouble, so it's easy for us to deal with Lin Yi. However, we still need to plan this matter first and find a good opportunity. It's best if Lin Yi takes the initiative to come to us. Otherwise, as the shopkeeper of the northern island of the Hong Merchant Guild, it wouldn't be good for me to go to the welcoming pavilion to find him. Yes, shopkeeper C has thought things through. Southern Sky Gate agreed. Chapter 4059. Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh. Haha, the North Island is like this. There are no female cultivators here, so it can't be compared to the Middle Island. However, if shopkeeper C wants to play, we brothers know a good place. Oh, since I don't have anything to do, why don't we go and relax together? Si Haishao immediately became interested and suggested, That's great. Shopkeeper C, as the host, we haven't had a chance to welcome you. This time, we can be the host and treat you as a welcome. The two nodded. For them, Si Haishao was a good backer, and they needed to find a way to curry favor with him. Since Si Haishao was interested, it couldn't be any better. They only needed to spend some spiritual jades to get closer to such a person. This was something they couldn't ask for more. After coming to the North Island, Si Haishao had been busy eliminating the influence left by the previous Hongzhong. After holding it in for so long, it was hard for him to restrain his desire. The three of them hit it off and immediately went out together. Although there weren't many female cultivators on the North Island, the place Nan Tianba and Southern Sky Gate brought Si Haishao to was the largest cultivator village around the three pavilions. The people here were all ordinary people. It was similar to the secular world, with restaurants, brothels, casinos, and other places of entertainment. Cultivators were humans too, with 7 emotions and 6 desires. Apart from cultivating, they still had various needs. When they needed to indulge themselves, they would often come to the cultivator village. Nan Tianba and the South Heaven Gate brothers had long been a frequent visitor here. There was only one common currency in the 5 great heavenly islands, and that was the spiritual jade. Since this was only a village where ordinary people lived, even the best brothel would not be able to afford such a small amount of money to the high and mighty cultivators. With just a few spiritual jades, one could easily play with the most beautiful and skilled female cultivators. Although they were just ordinary women and not superior female cultivators, if the quality wasn't good enough, quantity could make up for it. It was enough for Si Haishao to have fun. While Si Haishao and Nan Tianba were enjoying themselves in the cultivator village, Shanghai Laner, who was now grounded at home by Shanghai Tianhua, finally saw her best friend, Ning Shuefei, who came all the way from West Island. It was rare for the two girls to run into each other. Both of them cheered excitedly, adding a bit of liveliness to the usually tranquil Hualan house. They were also best friends who could talk about anything. Ning Shuefei and Han Jingjing were like-minded because of their similar hobbies, while she and Shangguan Laner were similar because of their similar personalities. Almost everything was a common topic between them. Come on, little Laner, quickly tell me about the rape. Oh, and about your kidnapping. You didn't explain it clearly in the letter. Ning Shuefei's eyes lit up with excitement. Even though Shangguan Laner was heartless, when he heard this, his face darkened, and he said speechlessly, Fei, you came all the way here just to ask about this. Aren't you here to comfort me? Sob, I'm so sad. Aya, of course I'm here to comfort you, little Laner. But it's such a fun thing. As a best friend, don't you want to share it with me? I'm also concerned about you. Ning Shuefei rolled her eyes and quibbled. All right. You always use the excuse of comforting people to rub salt into my wounds. I'm really defeated by you. Shangguan Laner could only surrender helplessly. Although Shangguan Laner deliberately pretended to be depressed, she could no longer hold back her smile after a while. She laughed and played together with Ning Shuefei. Being pestered by Ning Shuefei, Shangguan Laner told her everything that had happened recently in detail. Ning Shuefei was amazed. Shangguan Laner didn't say it in detail in the letter before, especially when they heard that Little White took a giant scissors and wiped off Su Lingcheng's penis. The two girls laughed back and forth, gave a thumbs up, and praised Little Curly Bear for being wise and capable. In the two things that Shangguan Laner had experienced recently, whether it was Su Lingchong's attempted rape or being kidnapped a few days ago, the protagonist was the same person, Lin Yi, in addition to herself. Why does the name Lin Yi sound so familiar? After hearing this, Ning Shuefei couldn't help scratching her head. After thinking hard for a long time, she suddenly patted her head and said, "By the way, I've heard this name long ago when I was in West Island." Really? Shangguan Laner couldn't help but be stunned. Although she liked her junior brother very much, Linny was just a newcomer after all. If he was a little famous in the three pavilions of the North Island, it was reasonable, but even Ning Shuefei, who was far away in West Island, had heard of him. This was impossible, right? It's true. I told you in the letter before that I have a good friend from the secular world. Her name is Han Jingjing. She often talks about Linny to me, but whether this Lin Yi is the same person as the Linny you mentioned, I don't know. Ning Shuefei tilted her head and said, "Hey, I remember that junior brother is also from the secular world. Is the Linny he mentioned to your friend really the same person?" Shangguan Laner thought about it and suddenly felt that it was very possible. She immediately suggested with great interest, "Why don't we go to ask junior brother now?" He, little Lon aren't you grounded by your grandfather now? How can you go out?" Ning Shuefei said with a smile. "If I am alone, Grandpa will definitely not let me go out. But now you are here, Fei. As the host, I will take you out to play. He will definitely agree," Shangguan Laner said with confidence. She was bored at home these days and wanted to take the opportunity to sneak out to play. "Okay, but before looking for Lin Yi, I want to go to the Hong's Chamber of Commerce first," Ning Shuefei said. "Why do you want to go to the Hong's Chamber of Commerce? To buy something? Didn't you just go to the auction in the far North Island recently?" Shangguan Laner asked curiously. "No, I'm going to the Hong's Chamber of Commerce to find a young man." Ning Shuefei's mouth curved slightly, like a kitten. Looking for a young man? Shangguan Laner was even more puzzled. She looked at Ning Shuefei up and down and asked curiously, "Fei, which young man are you looking for? Why are you looking for him?" "I won't tell you now. I will tell you when I find him," Ning Shuefei said mysteriously. "You will know when the time comes. He has a lot of good things in his hands." Chapter 4060. Just as she had said, although Shangguan Tianhua had grounded her, he couldn't possibly ground Ning Shuefei, who had come all the way from afar, as well. After hearing their words, she immediately nodded in agreement. Although there had been a kidnapping incident not long ago, this was still the territory of the three pavilions in the North Island. As long as precautions were taken, there was no need to worry about their personal safety. The two immediately went out with the little curly bear and went straight to the Hong's Chamber of Commerce in the inner street of the marketplace. Today happened to be the opening day of the inner street. They didn't even need to reveal their identities and directly walked into the gate of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce along with the crowd. On the North Island, female cultivators were extremely rare, especially the two women who were rare beauties. Even if they were mixed in the noisy crowd, no matter where they went, they would naturally become the focus of the audience. As soon as the two of them walked into the Hong Chamber of Commerce, a sharp-eyed shop assistant abandoned the other customers and welcomed them with a face full of joy. "Ladies, what treasures are you looking to buy? Do you want me to show you around the shop?" "No, I'm looking for a little shop assistant of your Hong's Chamber of Commerce," Ning Shuefei said impatiently. "Little shop assistant? I'm a little shop assistant, right? What can I do for you, miss?" The shop assistant was slightly stunned, and then quickly smiled attentively. Such a beautiful woman came to find him. Was he going to have good luck with women today? Secretly pinching Laner, who was snickering, Ning Shuefei rolled her eyes speechlessly and curled her lips. "I'm not looking for you. I'm looking for another little shop assistant." As they spoke, Ning Shuefei and Laner, who were already the center of attention, became the focus of the audience. Everyone present couldn't help but look at each other. Two drooling beauties were looking for a little shop assistant. What was going on? Was this what people said? Fresh flowers are destined to be inserted in cow dung? Looking for a little shop assistant? Si Haishao had just come back at this moment, although he was already drunk. But his strength meant that no matter how drunk he was, he wouldn't fall down directly. Hearing the sweet female voice coming from the crowd downstairs, he immediately poked his head out of the private room on the second floor in a trance. After seeing Ning Shuefei and Laner, Si Haixiao's eyes instantly widened. What the F***CK? These two girls were simply the best. Although Nan Tianba and the Southern Heaven Gate brothers had accompanied him to the brothel, they were only ordinary women after all. They could not be compared to the female cultivators on the Middle Island. They were on a completely different level, so Si Haixiao was not able to enjoy himself to the fullest. However, he did not expect that the moment he returned to the Hong Chamber of Commerce. Si Haixiao's appetite was immediately aroused when he found these two exquisite girls that were rarely seen in Nakajima. He looked at the two girls lecherously while pinching his chin and muttering, "You're looking for a young man? Why did he look for a young waiter? Could it be that these two women are the mistresses of some young waiter?" At this moment, Si Haixiao was both drunk and lustful. As he thought about it in a daze, he immediately felt that it was highly possible. He had been busy dealing with the internal affairs of the three great pavilions during this period of time and hadn't officially walked around the three great pavilions. It was not surprising that he did not know Shangguan Laner. As far as he knew, there were no female cultivators on the North Island, so he ruled out the possibility that the two women were cultivators of the three pavilions. Since these two girls were looking for some **t young waiter, then they were definitely mistresses. Damn it, just which fellow was it that was so lucky to get such a stunning and exquisite chick? What a waste of God's gifts. Even a manager like me doesn't have such luck with women. Thinking of this, Si Haixiao could not help but feel lustful. These two women were definitely ordinary women who had not seen much of the world. Since they were interested in a mere young waiter, then wouldn't it just be a matter of a word for him to get them into bed? Wahahaha, God wants me to enjoy my luck with women. I really can't stop it. Si Haixiao immediately forced himself to calm down and couldn't wait to get up and walk downstairs. At the same time, he was still imagining the wonderful scene of two stunning beauties serving him together in his mind. That feeling was simply killing him. Just then, Lin Yi suddenly appeared in the crowd at the door. Lin Yi came here to buy the supplementary materials that the king of junk had told him before. Although Hong Zhong was no longer here, these were basically things that could be bought normally, not precious treasures like the star inkstone that could only be found by chance. Therefore, he thought that Si Haixiao would not make things difficult for him for such a small matter. Of course, if Si Haixiao really did this, Lin Yi could also go to other places to buy them, such as asking Chen Heihu for help. However, Chen Heihu's business was not as big as that of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce. Even if he was willing to help, many materials were not in stock, and he had to find someone to buy them temporarily, which was a little troublesome. As soon as he entered the door, Lin Yi noticed the two women, Ning Shuefei and Shangguan Laner, who had become the focus of the crowd. The sharp-eyed little curly bear also found Lin Yi at once, and directly jumped over everyone's head and jumped onto Lin Yi's shoulder. "Little buddy, you were here. I was just looking for you." Ning Shuefei's eyes suddenly lit up, and she squeezed over with Shanghai Laner. Shanghai Laner had a strange expression. She pointed at Ning Shuefei and then pointed at Lin Yi. "Quack? He is the little buddy you were looking for. How could it be so coincidental? What's wrong?" Ning Shuefei looked at Shanghai Laner with a puzzled look. Shanghai Laner was stunned for a moment, and then said incredulously, "Your little buddy is actually my little junior brother Lin Yi that I told you about." "Are you serious? How could this be?" Ning Shuefei was taken aback when she heard the words. Lin Yi looked at Ning Shuefei, and he was also very surprised. How did she come here? She even knows Shanghai Laner? Besides being surprised, he couldn't help but secretly wonder, how could this world be so small? I can even encounter such a thing. However, noticing the strange gazes of other people, Lin Yi suddenly realized that there were too many people in this place. It was better to ask the two women to go out and change to a quieter place to talk. However, before waiting for Lin Yi to speak, Si Haixiao had already forced the crowd and squeezed over with the smell of alcohol. Si Haixiao was originally obsessed with lust. Now that he saw the sudden appearance of Lin Yi, he was even more excited. Although he hadn't met Lin Yi before, he had seen Lin Yi's portrait, And the words of Shanghai Laner had also confirmed Lin Yi's identity for him. Previously, he was still thinking about how to find a way to trick Lin Yi out. He didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, Lin Yi actually took the initiative to come to him. Chapter 4061. How could this brat, Lin Yi, be able to obtain these two exquisite beauties? Today, whether it was for official or personal reasons, Si Haishao felt that he had to make Lin Yi kneel. Lin Yi, as a newcomer to the welcoming pavilion, you actually disobeyed the rules. You actually dared to bring two brothel girls out in broad daylight and swaggered around in front of my Hong Merchant Guild. Where do you think the image of the three great pavilions is? Si Haishao reprimanded him with a righteous expression. Unfortunately, his pair of perverted eyes that occasionally glanced at the two girls betrayed his true nature. Previously, when he went to the brothel to seek pleasure, he heard Nan Tianba and Southern Skygate mention that the three great pavilions were extremely strict with their disciples. They would never allow them to go out and find brothel girls. Anyone who disobeyed would be severely punished. Of course, rules were rules. They were mainly targeted at newcomers. People like Nan Tianba and Southern Skygate never took these rules seriously. As long as they weren't caught on the spot, then it was useless. Because he had just returned from the brothel, Si Haishao subconsciously thought of the two girls as brothel girls. After all, even if they were Lin Yi's girlfriends, there would only be one of them. How could there be two of them together? No matter what, Lin Yi was a cultivator. It was impossible for him to find an ordinary girl as his partner. At the very least, he would find a female cultivator. However, female cultivators were very arrogant. Even Si Haishao only had one female cultivator as his wife. Only those brothel girls could do something like threesome. However, brothel girls were more daring and had more tricks up their sleeves. They could even do something more open than this. He had just played 1 against 3. What did you say? I advise you to keep your mouth clean. Be careful of the trouble that comes from your mouth. Lin Yi heard this and his aura turned cold. Oh, with your insignificant strength, you still dare to pretend to be a tough guy in front of me? Si Haishao suddenly laughed wildly. He pointed at Lin Yi and sneered, Guest expert. Help this shopkeeper suppress him. Inform the welcoming pavilion's pavilion master to come and pick him up. Just as he finished speaking, for unfathomable figures suddenly appeared around Lin Yi without warning, surrounding him tightly in the center. Lin Yi's heart tightened. These four guest experts were completely different from those he had seen before. In the Hong Chamber of Commerce, although the guest experts were hired by the Chamber of Commerce, there were also designated assistants. The original four guest experts had already followed Hongzhong to Middle Island. It was an unfamiliar face who only obeyed Si Haishao's orders. However, even if the person was different, to be able to become a guest expert of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, he would at least be an expert above the gold core stage. This was beyond doubt. Seeing that Lin Yi did not dare to make a move, Si Haishao smiled even more complacently. He turned his head to look at the two women lecherously and said, These two beauties, didn't you come out to sell your goods for spirit jades? This shopkeeper has plenty of them. Furthermore, I guarantee that you will give more than that poor brat. Why don't you follow me in 2 days? The situation suddenly changed. Ning Shuefei and Shangguan Laner were still a little confused at first, but now that they were so openly teased by the old man in public, they finally reacted. You old bastard. What did you say I am? Shangguan Laner could not help but gnash her teeth in anger. You actually said that we are prostitutes? I will fight with you. Ning Shuefei was so angry that her pretty face turned red. Regardless of everything, she directly attacked Si Haishao. The two of them, in terms of status, were at the level of little princesses. They were noble people who could not bear the slightest grievance. Now they were being humiliated as prostitutes in public. Seeing that the two women actually dared to attack him, Si Haishao could not help but be stunned. He subconsciously felt that something was wrong. However, he could not figure out what was wrong. He immediately greeted them with an obscene smile. Haha, you have quite a character. This shopkeeper likes little chilies like you. Anyway, we are out to sell our goods. Don't tell me that if that brat Lin Yi can play, I can't? Si Haishao said as he stretched out his hand to touch Ning Shuefei and Shangguan Laner. However, before he could succeed, 5 figures suddenly flashed behind the 2 women. Si Haishao did not see what was going on. His face was directly kicked, and he was sent flying to the wall more than 10 feet away. The surrounding people quickly moved to the side. The 4 guest experts saw that the situation was not good. They immediately left Lin Yi and rushed in front of Si Haishao, confronting the 5 people who appeared out of nowhere. As a result, the momentum of each side was actually equal. These 5 people, each of them was actually a golden core stage expert. Even if they did not count the tsunami, there were already 9 golden core stage experts confronting each other at this moment, which really shocked the surrounding audience. Golden core stage experts had always been a rare existence. How could there suddenly be so many of them? In a trance, there was a feeling that golden core stage experts were everywhere. These people are the core disciples of Soaring Sky Pavilion. Someone in the crowd suddenly exclaimed in a low voice. The clothes of the disciples of the 3 pavilions were different. As long as you paid a little attention, you could recognize them at a glance. The 4 guest experts of the Hong Chamber of Commerce suddenly felt a thump in their hearts. For against 5, they were originally at a disadvantage and did not dare to act rashly. If the other party was really a core disciple of Soaring Sky Pavilion, then they were a complete local bully. Once things got out of hand, they could not afford to provoke them at all. These 5 masters of Soaring Sky Pavilion were naturally arranged by Shangguan Tianhua. Shangguan Laner had just been kidnapped not long ago. Even if he, as a grandfather, was broad-minded, it was impossible for him not to take any precautions. What's more, now that Ning Shuefei, the real princess of West Island, had come, it was even more necessary to protect her. Otherwise, if Ning Shuefei had a little problem here, it would directly be a crisis for the 2 islands. If it was not handled properly, it was not impossible to trigger a war between the 2 islands, so they had to be careful. When the 2 sides confronted each other, the leader of the 5 masters of Soaring Sky Pavilion looked coldly at the 4 guest officials opposite him and said, "How dare you? These 2 ladies, one is the daughter of the owner of West Island, and the other is the granddaughter of the master of Soaring Sky Pavilion. You dare to insult them as prostitutes in public and even touch them. I really don't know why the Hong Chamber of Commerce would send such stupid scum to be the shopkeeper. I must give an explanation to the big shot above me. If you dare to stop me, come and try." After that, the master of Soaring Sky Pavilion shook his body, and the next moment, he appeared directly above Si Haishao's head. Without saying a word, he grabbed Si Haishao's neck with one hand and lifted him into the air. The 4 guest experts were shocked by the information revealed by his words and did not dare to move for a long time. They could only watch Si Haishao being abused. Chapter 4062. The 4 guests were so scared that they didn't dare to move. As for Si Haishao himself, although he was tipsy and dizzy, he still vaguely heard the words, "West Island Lord" and "Master of Soaring Sky Pavilion." He was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat, and his tipsy feeling was mostly gone. Unfortunately, it was too late for him to wake up. His opponent's strength was much higher than his, and he didn't have any chance to resist at all. At this time, even begging for mercy was just wishful thinking. Just now, when he was blinded by lust, he had completely offended the 2 women and even the big shots behind them. Under everyone's gaze, in front of the 4 guests of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, this master of Soaring Sky Pavilion began to ravage Si Haishao bit by bit. Crack, crack, crack. Under everyone's gaze, every bone and meridian in Si Haishao's body was mercilessly destroyed by a powerful and overbearing true qi until it was completely broken. At first, Si Haishao still had the strength to scream, but after a while, he didn't even have the strength to scream. In everyone's eyes, he was like a duck that had been strangled. The blue veins on his forehead stood out, and he desperately screamed, but he couldn't make any sound. Looking at this scene, everyone whispered to each other. Regarding Si Haishao's tragic end, they could only say 3 words: sad, ridiculous, and pitiful. Bang! The master of Soaring Sky Pavilion casually threw Si Haishao, who had fainted, on the ground, and turned to the two women for instructions. Miss Ning, Miss Shangwan, do you want to take this person back and cure him? Although the other party was the manager of a branch of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, and under normal circumstances, except for the top management of the Hong Chamber of Commerce's headquarters, no one else had the right to punish him. But today's matter involved the two misses of West Island and Soaring Sky Pavilion, so Si Haixiao had only himself to blame. Even if they took him back and killed him, the Hong Chamber of Commerce didn't have the face to stop it. Hearing this, Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuefei looked at each other and shook their heads at the same time. They shook their heads in unison. Both of them were not ruthless people. Although this old bastard was extremely hateful, it was already miserable enough that he was tortured to this extent in public. Anyway, he did not take advantage of them, so there was no need to pursue him relentlessly. If that's the case, then I'll spare his dog life for now. The expert from the Soaring Sky Pavilion nodded, and then retreated behind the two women with a solemn expression. Just like the others, Linny was speechless when he saw Si Haixiao gasping for air on the ground. The previously high and mighty shopkeeper of the Hong Chamber of Commerce was now like a dead dog. After what happened today, the Hong Chamber of Commerce behind him would not protect him. In order to explain to West Island and Rising Sky Pavilion, they would even punish Si Haixiao severely. In short, Si Haixiao, the newly appointed shopkeeper, had only been in high spirits for a few days, but in the blink of an eye, he was finished. Little junior brother, let's go and find a place to have a good talk with me. When exactly did you become a staff member of the Hong Chamber of Commerce? Why didn't I know about it at all? Shangguan Laner pouted gloomily. The matter of the northernmost island. Lin Yi didn't tell her, and Ning Shuefei kept her in suspense. She was kept in the dark from the beginning and became an outsider. Compared to being slandered by Si Haixiao as a prostitute, this matter was much more serious. Yes, I also have something very important to ask you. Yes, I also have something very important to ask you. Ning Shuefei immediately put aside the unhappiness just now and pulled Lin Yi excitedly. Then okay. Lin Yi nodded helplessly. Anyway, seeing that the Hong Chamber of Commerce was in a mess, he couldn't buy anything for a while, so he could only go with these two young ladies for the time being. Being surrounded by two beautiful young ladies on both sides, Lin Yi's treatment really made the people around him drool with envy. Especially when they thought of the rich backgrounds of these two women, they were even more jealous. Any one of them would be a winner in life with both power and beauty, let alone one against two. This kid looked thin and weak. He didn't look like an expert, and there was nothing special about him. How could he be favored by the heavens? Of course, jealousy was just jealousy. Looking at the 5 Soaring Sky Pavilion Gold Core stage experts scattered around the two women, with Si Haixiao's bloody example in front of them, no matter how unbalanced they were, they could only watch helplessly and did not dare to make the slightest movement. Compared to Lin Yi's blessing of having two women, Si Haixiao's ending was really bitter tears. When he woke up from the unbearable pain all over his body, a whole day had passed. When he finally realized the situation he was in, he was so shocked that he couldn't help but gasp. As the manager of the North Island branch of the Hong's Chamber of Commerce, Si Haixiao was actually thrown on the street of the inner street of the market and left to fend for himself. What the F***CK? Are you all dead? How dare you treat me like this? Today, I will kick all of you out. Si Haixiao's old face suddenly turned red when he was looked up and down by the strange eyes of passers-by, and he cursed angrily. Even if he made such a stupid mistake as yesterday, he was still a manager after all, and it was impossible for him to end up like a beggar on the street. Si Haixiao immediately cursed and tried to get up, but after struggling for a few times, he found that he could not stand up at all. Then he realized that the tendons in his limbs had been broken by someone with true qi, and he was now a useless man. But even so, Si Haixiao still did not lose his usual arrogance. He shouted to the passers-by, "Whoever comes over and carries me to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, I will give you a big reward." If what he said was on the open day of the inner street yesterday, maybe some passers-by who did not know the truth would be willing to give it a try. But now it was not the open day, and those who could come and go here were all people of status in the North Island. Si Haixiao's stupid feat yesterday had already been spread by word of mouth, and no one would pay attention to such a blind fool. After shouting for a long time, seeing that the passers-by were still indifferent, Si Haixiao finally stopped shouting in despair. But he did not give up. Since no one was willing to carry him, he would climb over by himself. The inner street was so big that even if he climbed all the way from the street to the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the distance was not too far. Once he arrived at the Hong Chamber of Commerce, it would be his territory. Under the gazes of the onlookers, Si Haixiao gritted his teeth and forced his way to the entrance of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. However, his subordinates, who were incomparably fawning over him, were only slightly stunned when they saw him. Then, they immediately looked away, as if they did not see him. Chapter 4063. However, the people in the store just looked at each other, and then went on with their own business, with no intention of helping Si Haixiao at all. Humph. Good. Very good. Today, I've seen the fickleness of human nature. Didn't you see that my tendons and meridians were broken? So you think I'm a useless person? Let me tell you, I can recover from this injury by taking the holy healing medicine. Even if I can't, I'm still your shopkeeper, and your life and death are still in my hands. Very good. I've seen your performance. None of you will have a good ending. Si Haixiao kept scolding. At this time, the young man who was the closest to him and was often beaten by him a few days ago suddenly said, I don't know if we will have a good ending, but you definitely won't. Your matter has been passed to the headquarters yesterday, and the higher-ups of the headquarters have already dealt with you. In order to give a satisfactory explanation to the Master of West Island and the Master of Soaring Pavilion, you have been completely removed from the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce and will never be employed again. What? That's impossible. You're talking nonsense. How dare you lie to me? Do you want to die? Si Haixiao's body shook in disbelief, and then he suddenly roared crazily. Lie to you? Open your dog eyes wide and take a good look before saying anything. A short-lived branch manager like you is truly unprecedented in the history of our Hong Chamber of Commerce. Your Excellency can really be considered as the first person in history. The shop assistant sneered disdainfully and pointed at a notice pasted in the middle of the wall. It clearly stated the punishment of Si Haixiao by the higher-ups of Middle Island of the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce, and the seal was indeed the unique seal of the headquarters. In an instant, Si Haixiao felt like he was struck by lightning, and his mind went blank. Just because of a drunken flirtation, the shopkeeper Fong, who was still high and mighty yesterday, was fired by the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce forever? Even though Si Haixiao was lying at the door in a daze, the people of the Hong Consortium of Chamber of Commerce didn't care about him. They continued to do their own things. A new ruler brings a new minister. What they needed to think about now was when the new shopkeeper would arrive. As for an idiot like Si Haixiao, they didn't care about him. In just a short moment, Si Haixiao seemed to have aged a few decades. He raised his head with great difficulty and said, Even though I'm no longer your shopkeeper, I'm still your esteemed customer since I'm here to buy medicine. I'm here to buy healing medicine, so I'm still your esteemed customer. Is this how you treat your honored guests? The shop assistant who was closest to him couldn't help but sneer. Honored guest? Could it be that not only are your tendons and meridians crippled, but your brain is also crippled? Oh right, to be able to do something as stupid as what you did yesterday, you don't have any brains to begin with. Then, I shall be merciful and give you a reminder. I'm sorry, but you've already been blacklisted by the Hong Chamber of Commerce, no matter if you go to the branch or the headquarters. We won't accept you. Si Haixiao was completely speechless. He stared helplessly at the healing elixirs on the display case. A good dog doesn't block the way. I advise you to find another place to lie down. Otherwise, if you affect the business of our Hong Chamber of Commerce, you won't be able to bear the consequences. The shop assistant sneered with an unfriendly expression. Si Haixiao clenched his teeth. If it was in the past, he would have killed this fellow with a slap. It was a pity that he was a nobody now. Furthermore, he was a cripple who couldn't even walk. No matter how indignant he was, he could only swallow his anger for the time being. He crawled out of the Hong Chamber of Commerce silently. Si Haixiao didn't give up just like that. He turned and crawled towards the Chamber of Commerce next to him. His top priority now was to quickly buy healing elixirs to treat his injuries. Even if he couldn't treat them in a short period of time, he had to at least stabilize his injuries and prevent them from worsening. The Hong Chamber of Commerce wasn't far away. It was the wealthy metropolis. Although their foundations were slightly weaker than the Hong Chamber of Commerce, the difference was limited. Si Haishao shamelessly crawled all the way to the wealthy metropolis. He couldn't care less about the strange gazes of the people around him. He shouted impatiently, "Someone, quickly prepare a level 5 meridian unblocking pill for me." All the tendons and meridians in his body had been shattered by someone's true qi. Only a level 5 meridian unblocking pill had a chance of treating such injuries. The employees of the wealthy metropolis were stunned. After whispering to each other, they didn't dare to make the decision on their own. They immediately invited Manager Hao out. "Oh, isn't this the new manager see next door? What a rare guest. May I know what orders you have for my humble shop today?" Manager Hao appeared to be warm on the surface, but everyone could see the hint of mockery hidden in his eyes. Furthermore, he had no intention of helping Si Haishao up from the start. Si Haishao suppressed his anger and said, "I need a level 5 meridian unblocking pill. Prepare it for me." "A level 5 meridian unblocking pill? Ha, this is a rare big deal." Manager Hao raised his eyebrows. "Then," he said regretfully, "it's a pity that our humble shop doesn't have a level 5 meridian unblocking pill in stock at the moment." "What? No stock?" Si Haishao almost vomited blood when he heard that. Whether he could recover from his injuries and find a chance to make a comeback depended entirely on this level 5 meridian unblocking pill. How could the wealthy metropolis not have it? Unbeknownst to him, it wasn't that the wealthy metropolis did not have it in stock. It was just that Manager Hao didn't want to sell it to him on purpose. After winning the last auction in the extreme North Island, the Hong Chamber of Commerce could be said to be like the sun at high noon. Even the wealthy families would have to tolerate such a competitor. There was no need to offend the Hong Chamber of Commerce for a stupid trash like Si Haishao, and it was not worth it. If we don't have a level 5 meridian unblocking pill, then there should be a level 4 great recovery pill, right? Si Haishao didn't want to give up. Although the level 4 great recovery pill was not as effective as the level 5 meridian unblocking pill, it could at least stabilize his injuries. Unexpectedly, Manager Hao shook his head and said, "I'm sorry, we don't have it either. Someone bought it out of stock some time ago." "You don't have it either?" Si Haishao was stunned. If it was worse than a level 4 great recovery pill, other healing pills would not have any effect on his current injuries. Si Haishao had no choice but to crawl out of the wealthy metropolis and turn to other merchant unions. His purpose was obvious. He was still looking to buy a level 5 meridian unblocking pill and a level 4 great recovery pill. However, the reply that the other merchant unions received was the same. They were all out of stock. This time, no matter how slow Si Haishao's brain was, he finally realized that something was wrong. These merchant unions were obviously looking out for the Hong merchant union's face. They didn't dare to sell to him at all. Chapter 4064. However, Si Haishao did not give up. Even if he had to crawl all the way, he had to ask all the chambers of commerce in the inner street. He did not believe that all the chambers of commerce would ignore the large amount of spiritual jades and follow the Hong Consortium's lead. Finally, when Si Haishao climbed to the point of exhaustion and was about to give up, he saw a 4th-grade Great Recovery pill on the display of a store called the Central Chamber of Commerce. Si Haishao was overjoyed. Even if there was no 5th-grade Meridian Unblocking pill, this 4th-grade Great Recovery pill was a lifesaver for him. Si Haishao hurriedly crawled into the door of the Central Chamber of Commerce. He pointed at the display case and shouted, "Guards, I want that 4th-grade Great Recovery pill. It's on display. You can't possibly lie and pretend that you don't have it in stock, right?" The manager looked at him in surprise and smiled. "Sir, you must be joking. This is business that comes knocking on your door. As a businessman, how can I reject it? Since you want it, I'll get someone to pack it up for you. As for the method of payment, would you like to swipe the spiritual jade card? Or, of course, Si Haishao took out the spiritual jade card from his bosom with great difficulty and handed it over to the steward. He was secretly rejoicing in his heart. Fortunately, he had earned a lot of spiritual jades over the years. This was the capital for him to stage a comeback in the future. However, a moment later, Si Haishao was dumbfounded. The spiritual jade card had been frozen and could not be swiped at all. This news caused Si Haishao to spit out a mouthful of blood in front of everyone. All of his spirit jades were on this spirit jade card. This was his entire fortune and his life. Not only was he tortured into a cripple, but he could not even use the spiritual jade card that was his last hope. Si Haishao almost fainted in front of the Central Chamber of Commerce in despair. Gathering his last bit of spirit, Si Haishao crawled out of the door in a daze. However, he did not know where to go. There was no way out. This time, he really didn't have any ideas. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from beside him. "If you want the elixir, follow me." Si Haishao looked up in the direction of the voice and found that the person who spoke was a mysterious person wearing a black windbreaker. Even his face was covered by a black bamboo hat, making it impossible to see his face clearly. "Are you talking to me?" Si Haishao had already lost all hope. At this moment, he was like a drowning man grasping at his last life-saving straw. The mysterious man did not reply, but just lowered his head and gave him a meaningful look. Then, he walked to the side. Si Haishao was confused, but he still clenched his teeth and followed after them with great effort, hoping to get lucky. In any case, he was nothing now, and he was penniless. He was a complete cripple with a rotten life. There was nothing to be afraid of. As if he was waiting for Si Haishao, the mysterious man deliberately walked very slowly. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, they finally stopped in front of a grand and luxurious tea house, and it was called the Central Tea Party. Si Haishao couldn't help but feel puzzled. Look at this name. Could it be that it was opened by the same company as the Central Chamber of Commerce? Speaking of which, as the former Four Directions supervisor of Hongying Group, Si Haishao had specially investigated this Central Chamber of Commerce before he came to North Island. This was a business that had only recently risen to prominence. However, in just a few months, they quickly occupied all the islands, even the middle island where the competition was the fiercest. Their Chamber of Commerce appeared at the same time. Si Haishao used the Hongying Group's intelligence system, but in the end, he still could not find out the owner behind the Central Chamber of Commerce. He only knew that this person was very mysterious and had a very terrifying power. The Central Chamber of Commerce was not like the other chambers of commerce, which grew slowly from small to large. It gave people the feeling that it had grown from nothing to something in just a few days. Suddenly, it was like a spring breeze, thousands of pear trees bloomed, and suddenly, it was all over the 5 main islands of Heaven's stage. He followed the mysterious man all the way into an elegant private room. Seeing that the mysterious man sat down and faced him, Si Haishao braced himself and said nervously, "You were looking for me?" Before he finished his sentence, the mysterious man did not speak, but took out a grade 5 meridian conduit elixir and placed it on the table in front of Si Haishao. This is for me?" Si Haishao couldn't help but swallow his saliva, his eyes shining as he stared at the grade 5 meridian conduit elixir in front of him. This was the only elixir that could save his life now. However, Si Haishao was not a fool. No matter how much he desired it, he dared not reach out to take the elixir. He could only rub his hands awkwardly and say, I don't have spiritual jade. You don't need spiritual jade. I'll give it to you," the mysterious man said calmly. Si Haishao was elated, but he still suppressed his greed and said, I think that I have no value now. I wonder if you have value. You just haven't realized it," the mysterious man interrupted. "Oh?" Si Haishao was stunned, not understanding what the other party meant. "As long as you promise to work for me wholeheartedly, this grade 5 meridian conduit elixir will be yours," the mysterious man stated. "All right," Si Haishao agreed without hesitation. He had nothing left now. No matter what he did for the mysterious man in the future, it would be better than being a cripple waiting for death. The mysterious man nodded in satisfaction and said, I heard that you started out in the intelligence department. Not bad. I have an organization in my hands, and I'll hand it over to you in the future. Oh, I'll take charge? What do I need to do? Si Haixiao's eyes lit up. The mysterious man smiled faintly and said, It's very simple. Help me find some people with potential but evil intentions. For example, people like you. Huh. Si Haixiao suddenly felt that his brain was not working properly. It was easy to understand finding people with potential, but evil intentions? What kind of request was that? There's no need to ask why. As long as you agree, I'll give you a brand new future. Your status won't be lower than the manager of the Hong Chamber of Commerce. As for the power, it'll be beyond your imagination. The mysterious man's tone was calm, but it sounded strangely enticing to Si Haixiao. All right, I agree. Si Haixiao nodded immediately. Very good. From today onwards, you'll be the manager of the Chamber of Commerce in the North Island. Of course, this is only your public identity. As for your secret identity, it's the team leader of the intelligence team in the North Island. The mysterious man said calmly, Huh. Even though Si Haixiao had already thought of countless possibilities in his mind, he could not help but be shocked when he heard the mysterious man's words. Chapter 4065. One simple sentence from the other party, and Si Haixiao became a shopkeeper again. What's more, he became the leader of the intelligence team. Life was indeed unpredictable. This great rise and fall had come too quickly. Just as Si Haixiao was so shocked that he didn't know what to say, the mysterious man took out another bottle and placed it beside the Great Meridian Channel unblocking pill. He said, Drink this bottle of medicinal liquid now. It won't affect your body, but you have to take the antidote once a month. If you don't have any ulterior motives, I will give you the antidote regularly. Si Haixiao's heart sank. There was no free lunch in this world. The mysterious man gave him such a huge benefit, but there were conditions. Haha, there's no point in hesitating. Do you think that I'll let you leave this room alive if you don't agree after I've said so much to you? As he spoke, a towering aura erupted from the mysterious man, causing the entire tea party to tremble. Even with Si Haixiao's experience, he was still dumbfounded by this terrifying aura that he had never seen before. Not to mention that he was now a cripple. Even if he was at his peak, he would probably be no stronger than an ant in front of this mysterious person. Si Haixiao had no choice. Since things had come to this, he could only crawl to the table, pick up the bottle of medicinal liquid, and drink it. He didn't dare to have any ulterior motives. You're quite sensible. Go and have a good rest. Go officially to the Central Chamber of Commerce tomorrow. The mysterious man waved his hand lightly. Yes. I'll take my leave. Si Haixiao excitedly took the Meridian Channel conduit pill and kowtowed to the mysterious man. He crawled backward out of the private room. There was already a servant waiting at the door to help him change, shower, and recuperate. After Si Haixiao left, the door inside the private room suddenly opened automatically without any warning. The mysterious man's domineering aura dissipated instantly. He kowtowed respectfully to the private room inside, not daring to cross the line. It's settled. He'll officially take office tomorrow. I'll personally supervise him during this period, the mysterious man said respectfully. All right, you may leave. A woman's voice came from inside the private room. Yesterday, after leaving the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Lin Yi and the two ladies found a clean and tidy restaurant. Although it was far from being as high class as the Soaring Sky Pavilion's splendid sun house, and it didn't have spirit energy delicacies that easily cost hundreds of spirit jades, it was just some ordinary dishes that had nothing to do with cultivation. However, it was still very delicious, and it had the warmth of a home. The 5 Soaring Sky Pavilion core disciples had been following the 3 of them, constantly monitoring everyone's movements. With Si Haixiao's appearance, they had to be extra vigilant. It would be a dereliction of duty if another blind person came to disturb the mood of the 2 young misses. However, under the strong request of Shangguan Laner and Ning Shuefei, they did not enter the private room. They could only be on standby in the surrounding areas. Only Lin Yi and the 2 women were left in the private room. There was also a little curly bear who was busy eating and drinking. I didn't dare to ask more last time in a hurry. It turns out to be Miss Ning of West Island. How disrespectful. Regarding the matter of the northernmost island, many thanks for your help. I can't thank you enough. Engrave it in my heart. Lin raised his glass and thanked Ning Xuefei. Aya, if I knew you were Lin Yi, I would have saved you even more. This is what I should do. Ning Xuefei's lips curled into a meaningful smile. Lin Yi was slightly stunned when he heard this. He couldn't help but look at Shangguan Laner. He thought that she said this because she was Shangguan Laner's best friend. Love me, love my dog. Ning Xuefei smiled slightly. When they were on the northernmost island, she didn't know about the matter between Shangguan Laner and Lin Yi. Her words were referring to her other best friend, Han Jingjing. After the contact on the road just now, she could be sure that this was the Lin Yi that Han Jingjing had been yearning for day and night. However, she didn't want to break the window paper for such a fun thing. It would be good to wait until the time to give them a big surprise. Well, you two don't have to keep me in suspense anymore. Little fellow, what happened? Quickly tell me honestly. Shangguan Laner couldn't wait to urge. Lin Yi and Ning Xuefei looked at each other and no longer hid it. They talked about the matter in the northernmost island to her. After listening to the encounter between the two, Shangguan Laner was amazed for a long time. She couldn't help but sigh that the world was really too small. They could even know each other like this. But then she wondered, little junior brother, how did you get injured at that time? Is the northernmost island so chaotic? Yeah, I wanted to ask this question too. Lin Yi, you were injured quite badly at that time. Ning Xuefei said curiously. Although she had a guess, it was just a guess. Lin Yi hesitated for a while, but thinking that these two weren't outsiders and had a close relationship with him, they wouldn't betray him. He lowered his voice and admitted, Miss Ning, you must have heard about what happened that night. Zhang Tianjie died because of a cauldron explosion. Actually, it was my doing. The two women were shocked when they heard this. Zhang Tianjie's status was not much inferior to theirs. His death had caused quite a stir in the past. According to the elders in the family, if it wasn't for the Dan-god Zhang Liju personally coming out and confirming that this guy died because of his cauldron explosion, Zhang Dongjue would have sent out the elites of Zhongdao's Dan Hall. They didn't expect that the cause of such a huge incident was Lin Yi. After being stunned for a while, Shangguan Laner suddenly praised him excitedly. Little junior brother, you're really amazing. Zhang Dongjue was someone Grandpa met when he brought me to Zhongdao. He's not a good person. I heard that a lot of girls in Zhongdao were harassed by him. Little junior brother, you're doing the people a favor. Ning Xuefei asked curiously, then why did you kill him? Oh, I know. It must be because he saw that you had so many elixirs that you couldn't buy even if you bought them, so he wanted to rob them. Lin Yi smiled and shook his head. That's not it. Miss Ning should have an impression of my conflict with him. I bid against him at the auction and offended him. He didn't plan on sharing Tianchan's matter with the two girls. After all, there wasn't a need for it. One more person knowing would mean one more trouble for Tianchan. It was better not to mention it. Chapter 4066. Right, I said he's a bad guy. Junior brother, you did a good job. Shangguan Laner chimed in. She suddenly paused and pinched the little curly bear's neck, saying, You're a foodie. Why can't you change your bad habit of licking all the dishes first? We haven't touched anything, but the dishes on the table are all covered with your saliva. How can we eat? The little curly bear was caught off guard and choked. As soon as Shangguan Laner loosened her grip, he immediately spat out the food in his mouth all over the table, and then he burped with satisfaction. Lin Yi and the other two looked at each other and were speechless. They stared at the little curly bear for a long time and said helplessly, Let's order another table. I haven't eaten enough. Seeing the little curly bear's innocent expression, Ning Xuefei felt funny and distressed. She quickly helped him out and changed the topic, saying, Since you're so familiar with me and little Lin Yi, why don't you be our tour guide and show us around in the next few days? I've long heard that there are many scenic spots in the North Island. Although I've been here many times before, I always come and go in a hurry and never have a good time. I'd like to, but I'm a newcomer in the welcome pavilion. According to the rules, I can't go out at will, Linny said with a wry smile. Although he had this eldest senior brother who was now in charge to help him bear the burden and secretly disappear for a while to look for the king of scrap weapons, it was not a big deal. At most, people would think that he was hiding in the cave for closed-door training. However, if he swaggered out with the two young ladies to play, it would be too eye-catching. What should we do? Little Lon, do you have any good ideas? Ning Shuefei turned to ask. Although she was the princess of the West Island, every place had its own rules. She was not the kind of ignorant little girl who took herself as the center of everything and didn't care about the life and death of others. Well, let me think. Shangguan Laner rolled her eyes and patted her head, saying, "It doesn't matter. I've got an idea. As long as my grandfather arranges a position for you, they can't say anything about you." Position? What position? Linny asked with a strange expression. I don't know. Anyway, I will definitely let Grandpa think of a way. This problem will be left to him to worry about. Hee. Shangguan Laner said indifferently. All right. He could only nod in agreement speechlessly. As for the casting, he could only put it aside for a couple of days. Anyway, the King of Junk had said that it might not be a bad thing to maintain it for a longer period of time, so it shouldn't be a big deal. Since they were scared by Si Haishao before, the two girls did not have the mood to continue playing today. After having a meal with Lin Yi, he quickly returned under the protection of the 5 Soaring Sky Pavilion Corps disciples. Early the next morning, a transfer order was suddenly sent to the welcoming pavilion. Everyone in the welcoming pavilion was shocked. The newcomers of the 3 great pavilions were all gathered together to listen to their orders. Everything was done in a very formal manner. There was a deacon who was in charge of conveying the orders of the Elders Guild who personally appeared and accompanied him. And there was Hu Yunfeng with a pale face. After a meeting of the Elders Guild of the North Island, Lin Yi of the Welcoming Pavilion is appointed as the reception deacon of the West Island. He is in charge of receiving Miss Ning, a guest from the West Island. He is also responsible for all the matters of her travel in the North Island. If she encounters any problems, she can act at her own discretion without asking for additional instructions. The deacon read the transfer order in public. As soon as the words came out, there was an immediate uproar. Even Hu Yunfeng had an indescribable look of astonishment on his face. Reception deacon of the West Island? What kind of position is this? I have never heard of it before. The point was that it was personally appointed by the Elders Guild, and he had the right to act at his own discretion. It didn't sound simple at all. Under the envious eyes of the crowd, Lin Yi received the transfer order, but he was secretly speechless. Shanghai Tianhua, the top tycoon, is really leisurely and carefree. He actually thought of such a unique title for me. It can be said that he took a lot of effort. However, just as Lin Yi took the transfer order and was about to turn around and leave, the deacon suddenly said, "Little brother Lin Yi, wait a minute. I have a private letter from Pavilion Master Shangguan here. Please take it with you." Boom. The crowd was even more excited. Shanghai Tianhua, the pavilion master of the Rising Pavilion, actually gave a private letter to a newcomer of the Blue Cloud Pavilion. The weight of this letter is more enviable than the inexplicable transfer order just now. Damn it, how many generations of good fortune does Lin Yi have? Most of the newcomers were just watching the fun, but Hu Yunfeng, the pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, had a pitiful expression, as if he had eaten tea and had to savor it slowly. Shangguan Tianhua was a high and mighty peak-level existence. Even with his status as the pavilion master of the welcoming pavilion, it was difficult for him to even speak to him face-to-face, let alone form any sort of relationship with him. Just what had this Lin Yi done to deserve such special treatment from such a powerful figure? Even Hu Yunfeng was in such a state. Kang Mingming, Mu Rongzhan, and the other rivals who regarded Lin Yi as a thorn in their side were so shocked that they couldn't speak for a long time. Although the sun was still shining brightly, their hearts had already fallen into an ice cellar, frozen into a pile of frozen lumps. Lin Yi didn't care about this group of people who were so depressed that they vomited blood. After receiving the private letter from Shanghai Tianhua, he turned around, walked to an empty place, opened it, and read it carefully. Lin Yi, this old man thinks that you're smart and dependable. You have a lot of potential, and this training is a rare opportunity. I hope you'll do your best and protect the princess. Be a qualified personal bodyguard for the island flower. Close master of the island flower? The last sentence in the letter made Lin Yi spit on the spot. He felt that he was born to do this. Wherever he went, he had to do this work. It was like this in the secular world, and now he was on the heaven stage island, but he still couldn't escape this fate. As soon as he finished reading the letter, the gathered newcomers were in an uproar again. Lin Yi looked up and saw Shanghai Laner and Ning Xuefei, two little beauties with powerful backgrounds, smiling sweetly and waving at him not far away. With the Princess of West Island in one hand and the Princess of Chongtian Pavilion in the other, looking at the backs of Lin Yi and his companions, people in the welcoming pavilion were completely petrified. They all sighed in their hearts as a newcomer. He should learn from Lin Yi. He is a real winner in life. If we can't find a strong backer, I think we can give up on Lin Yi. Meng Tong sighed faintly behind the crowd. Chapter 4067. Just like what Meng Tong had said, at least for now, they were no longer a threat to Lin Yi. Even if they did not give up, they could only swallow their anger for now. Bringing two beauties to tour the North Island, in the eyes of anyone, was a heavenly task. Lin Yi, on the other hand, did not have such dirty thoughts. However, he had been on the Heaven Stage Island for more than half a year, and he had never had such a good time. It could be considered as a rare relaxing experience after cultivating hard. However, just as Lin Yi was accompanying the two ladies to tour around, a piece of heavy news suddenly spread throughout the North Island, becoming the new topic of conversation after a meal. The former manager of the Hong Chamber of Commerce, Si Haishao, who had molested the two princesses in public, had now become the manager of the Central Chamber of Commerce after he was abused into a cripple. His meridians were all broken, and he was forever removed from his position by the Hong Chamber of Commerce. How could he be promoted so quickly? This Si Haishao doesn't look like much. How could he be so capable? Lin Yi could not help but be puzzled. Such a bad old bastard. There are actually people willing to hire him as a manager. Is this Central Chamber of Commerce sick? Shanghai Laner said angrily. Even if she was simple and did not hold a grudge against Si Haishao, it would be strange for her to be happy when she suddenly heard this kind of news. Ning Xuefei also frowned, but said with some doubt, Central Chamber of Commerce? This name sounds familiar. It seems to be in the limelight recently. I don't know why, but I also feel the same way. Lin Yi also frowned. He did not know what Central Chamber of Commerce was, but this word made him feel like he had heard it before. Although the three of them were surprised and puzzled, they were having fun and did not pay too much attention to it. Si Haishao had already paid a heavy price previously. As long as he did not provoke them again, he was just an unrelated passerby. At the same time, the two brothers Nantianba and Nantianmin were beating their chests and stamping their feet. What a waste of alcohol. Si Haishao had such a good backer. He had just gotten a little closer to him, but now he was pushed to the bottom. Not only had they lost a backer, but they had also been severely reprimanded by their uncle, Nantian Aurora, in his letter. Si Haishao was someone he had paid a huge price to finally raise to his current position. Just because these two fellows had brought him to a brothel to have fun, they ended up playing with him until he became an idiot with overflowing sperm. This was great. All his previous efforts had gone to waste. He had wasted an astronomical amount of spirit jades. Not even a sound was heard. Just as the two brothers were regretting their decision, they did not expect to receive such a piece of news. Si Haishao had miraculously regained his position in the blink of an eye. When Nantianba and the Southern Heaven Gate received the news, they immediately made their way to the newly opened Central Chamber of Commerce. As expected, they saw the high-spirited Si Haishao. Aya, Manager Si, we finally found you. We haven't been able to find you for the past 2 days, and we've been extremely worried. Nantianba and the Nantian Min brothers rushed over with faces full of joy. "Humph, were you really looking for me everywhere?" Si Haixiao's expression turned cold. The miserable experience from before had already become a shadow that he could not get rid of for the rest of his life. That was his most desperate and helpless moment. However, these two people did not show up from the beginning to the end. When the tree falls, the monkeys scatter. How could he not bear a grudge? Seeing this, the two brothers hurriedly explained, "It's true, it's true. Speaking of this, it's all our fault. We shouldn't have brought you to that kind of place to get drunk. Otherwise, such a big thing wouldn't have happened. Actually, after sending you back to the Hong Family Chamber of Commerce the day before yesterday, the two of us also drank ourselves into oblivion. When we woke up, it was already yesterday evening. When we heard that something had happened to you, we searched everywhere for traces of you. However, we couldn't find you." Hearing the two of them say this, Si Haixiao's expression became much more relaxed. He had already left with the mysterious person yesterday evening. It was normal for the two brothers to say that they couldn't find him. "All right then, this old man will believe you for now. This matter will be over for now." Fortunately, this old man had the help of a benefactor. Otherwise, the two of you would probably have to collect this old man's corpse. Si Haixiao was half afraid and half glad as he said this. Yes, shopkeeper Si, you're truly blessed by the heavens." Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate wiped away the cold sweat on their foreheads. They had finally tricked this old thing. With their way of doing things, they would always support the strong and trample on the weak. When Si Haixiao was successful, they naturally wanted to get closer to him. As for whether Si Haixiao came to look for him when he was in trouble, only they themselves would know. Seeing Si Haixiao sitting on a specially made wheelchair, Southern Heavenly Gate asked with a face full of concern, "Shopkeeper Si, how are your injuries? Do you want us to get some healing medicine for you?" "No need. This old man's injuries aren't too serious. I only broke a few meridians. I've already taken a 5th grade meridian unblocking pill. It's only a matter of time before I recover. You don't have to worry about me." Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate nodded and said, "Although these injuries can be healed, this old man must take revenge." Forget about the two girls. That Lin Yi is the main culprit that caused this old man's tragedy. If I don't take revenge, I'm not a man. Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate nodded and said, "That's right. We must find a way to kill that brat Lin Yi. He's too despicable. However, I heard that he's always with Shanghai Laner and Ning Shuefei. He's also surrounded by the 5 experts from the Rising Sky Pavilion. It's not a good time to make a move on him. The future is long. Isn't it just a few more days? This old man still has this much patience." Si Haixiao's eyes were filled with hatred. He then said, "This old man has made a comeback, but I haven't had the time to celebrate. Apart from the two of you, I don't know anyone else on the North Island. Why don't we go for a drink and have some fun?" Since shopkeeper Si has given the order, we wouldn't dare to disobey. The two of them immediately smiled and said. The three of them immediately found a top-notch restaurant and chatted happily. However, this time, Si Haixiao had learned his lesson. He didn't dare to mention anything about finding women again. After all, he was forced to take the poison. If he fooled around all day and didn't do anything serious, he would be finished if he angered the mysterious person behind him. You two are the local bullies of the North Island, so you have a deep understanding of all aspects of the North Island. I have a question to ask you. I don't know if you have ever heard of people with potential but evil intentions? Si Haixiao said, weighing his words. Nan Tianba and Southern Heavenly Gate were stunned. They then blurted out, "Isn't that you, Jia?" Chapter 4068. Si Haixiao could not help but curl his lips. Yuzha had already disappeared, and not even a shadow could be found. What was the use of mentioning him? He continued, "Is there anyone else other than him?" Southern Heavenly Gate frowned and thought for a moment. Suddenly, he slapped his thigh and said, "Yes, there's someone called Kong Ming Ming in the welcoming pavilion. Some time ago, because I suspected that he was Lin Air, I specially observed this person. He's very sinister and full of evil tricks, but he has some brains. Rumor has it that this kid is vengeful. Even when the newcomers fight in the arena, he will use underhanded methods. Many people have been tricked by him. Oh, that's interesting. Si Haixiao's eyes lit up when he heard this. Southern Heavenly Gate laughed. What's even better is that this guy is the same as us. He is also a mortal enemy of Lin Yi. His hatred is not shallow. Si Haixiao was even more satisfied. He immediately said, "That's great. Then I'll trouble you to arrange for this person to meet me. I have great use for him." Although Southern Heavenly Gate did not understand, since Si Haixiao had said it, he had no reason to refuse. He immediately set off for the welcoming pavilion. During this period of time, Kong Ming had not been doing well. It could even be said that it was the worst period of time since he came to the Heavenly Stage Island. Not only was he defeated by Lin Yi last time, but now that he had lost his backer, Su Lingchong, as a new deacon, he had become somewhat awkward. The newcomers no longer took him seriously, and it was basically impossible for him to advance further. Even the pavilion master, Hu Yunfeng, had begun to distance himself from him. Recently, all the big and small matters had been handed over to the newcomers to manage, giving him fewer and fewer instructions. And for a position like his, once there were no missions, it meant that he had no power. He was not far from becoming a transparent person. He could only watch helplessly as Lin Yi latched onto a super thick thigh like Shanghai Tianhua, while his own situation was deteriorating. If this continued, it was almost certain that he would be stepped on by Lin Yi. Kong Ming was currently surrounded by a sense of crisis. However, he had no idea how to deal with it. Coincidentally, the Southern Heavenly Gate had come knocking on his door. It was as if someone had sent him a pillow just as he was about to doze off. However, as much as Kong Ming believed that this was a rare opportunity, he still called Pinliang along for safety's sake. If something happened, he'd at least have someone to cover for him. Pinliang, on the other hand, wanted to see what these people were up to. He agreed without hesitation and followed them. He brought the two of them to the restaurant. To put it nicely, the meeting between Kong Ming and Si Haixiao was like old friends at first sight. To put it bluntly, they were birds of the same feather. After Kong Ming's flattery, the atmosphere at the table immediately became harmonious, and the two sides talked happily. "I heard that you guys have a grudge with Lin Yi as well?" Si Haixiao finally brought up the matter at hand. "That's right. Shopkeeper Si, you don't know. Lin Yi and I have a blood feud, and so does Brother Zhong. Our grudge can't even be finished in 3 days and 3 nights. Kong Ming said bitterly. "That's perfect. We are on the same side. The enemy of an enemy is a natural ally. Zhaoming, if you're willing to surrender to me, that's fine. If you want me to protect you in the future, that's fine too. But you have to do something first. You need to prove your loyalty to us, right?" Si Haixiao squinted his eyes and smiled. Kong Ming was overjoyed when he heard this, but he was a little troubled. I won't hide it from you, Manager Si. A while ago, we took the initiative to find trouble with Lin Yi. We wanted to eliminate him in one fell swoop, but the result wasn't what we wanted. He dodged it. Seniors, Nan can also testify to this. Si Haixiao glanced at Nan Tianba and Southern Skygate. Seeing the two brothers nod their heads, he said indifferently, "Since you've already failed, it can't be considered a proof of loyalty. Since you guys could mess with him once before, you can naturally mess with him again now. What do you think?" But these days, he's been with the two misses. If we want to deal with him face to face, it won't be easy. After all, we're just rookies in the welcoming pavilion. Doing this is no different from courting death. I hope Manager Si can understand this." Kong Ming said with a bitter face. "That may be the case, but if we can't deal with him face to face, can't you think of another way? If you don't even have this much ability, even if I accept you, what's the use?" Si Haixiao curled his lips and said, "This old thing, he wouldn't release the eagle until he saw the rabbit." Kong Ming thought to himself. Then, he thought of something and said, "I've thought of a way. Last time we went to mess with Lin Yi, he seemed to be forging. Now that he's busy playing with the two misses, he definitely won't have time to care about that place. What do you think, Manager Si?" Si Haixiao's eyes lit up when he heard this. He stroked his beard and said, "Not bad. This is a rare opportunity. Once something like forging starts, it can't be stopped. Even if he's not here, the forging will still continue. If you guys take this opportunity to mess with him, even if you can't do anything to him, you'll still make his heart ache. Then it's decided. As long as you do this well, it'll be your proof of loyalty. In the future, I'll take good care of you. You'll be able to achieve great success. Okay, I'll leave now. Just wait for my good news, Manager C. Kong Ming said excitedly. He turned around and left with Zhong Pingliang. He'd suffered a huge loss at Lin Yi's hands last time. This was the perfect time to get back at him and make the guy feel heartache. He didn't have to fight Lin Yi head-on anyway, so there was no risk at all. On the way, Zhong Pingliang was worried. He wanted to send a message to Lin Yi, but he didn't even know where Lin Yi was. He could only follow Kong Ming and play it by ear. When they reached the cave entrance, Kong Ming jumped in impatiently, with Zhong Pingliang following closely behind. At this moment, King of Junk was studying the forging notes his Shifu had left him. Although the accident from before seemed to be safe, and there was still room to salvage the situation, King of Junk was truly scared out of his wits. While Lin Yi was collecting materials, he had to calm down and review his forging plan from start to finish. He had to review the notes, and perhaps he'd be able to find his blind spots and prevent similar mistakes from happening again. It was because he was too focused that he didn't notice Kong Xiaoming and Kong Xiaoming sneaking in. It was only when the two appeared behind him that he finally reacted. Who's there? The King of Junk was shocked and jumped up from the ground. Chapter 4069. Damn, when did Lin Yi get such a helper? Fortunately, I was cautious enough to prepare the alchemic firebomb in advance. Otherwise, today's effort would have been in vain. Kong Ming spat with lingering fear. Pinliang, on the other hand, was speechless as he looked at the trash king on the ground. He didn't even know that the two of them had snuck in like that. Wasn't this guy a little too unwary? He was knocked out by Kong Ming with just one move, and Pinliang didn't even have a chance to sneak up on him. While Pinliang was thinking, Kong Xiaoming had already stepped past the King of Junk and reached the edge of the pool. He looked at the strange lump of metal in the middle of the pool and smiled coldly. This is the weapon Lin Yi is crafting, right? I heard he even asked Hong Zhong to get him a lot of valuable materials. Let's take this thing away today. Don't you think it'll hurt him to death? Before Pinliang could say anything, Kong Xiaoming reached into the pool and fished out the lump of metal. The pool looked as calm as a pool of stagnant water, so there wasn't much of a threat to it. However, right after that, Kong Ming's expression changed abruptly. Roar! A hoarse and miserable howl instantly penetrated the entire cave. Even the birds in the forest outside were startled and flew away. Fish, accompanied by a scalp-numbing sizzling sound. A layer of skin on Kong Ming's hand was burned off. His hands swelled like carrots at a speed visible to the naked eye. He hurriedly let go, and the iron lump fell on his feet with a bang. Another layer of skin was burned off. Don't be fooled by the forging pool's lukewarm appearance, as if it was no different from an ordinary pool. However, the temperature inside was not something a human could endure. Even if he was a foundation establishment expert, his body was still made of flesh and blood. In the eyes of experts, Kong Ming's action was purely a case of an old man hanging himself. He was tired of living. It's so hot. It was scalding. It was scalding. Pinliang didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he watched Kong Ming rolling on the ground. He was still thinking of a way to deal with this situation. He didn't think that the idiot would fall into the trap of his own accord. This was good. He didn't even have to think. Without another word, Pinliang grabbed Kong Ming's ankle and dragged him out of the cave. After the time it took for a stick of incense to burn, Kong Ming's screams finally subsided. He looked at Pinliang and said weakly, "What the hell was that? Why was it so hot?" Pinliang couldn't help but laugh inwardly. What else could it be? What? Boss Lin Ming hand? You even dared to use your hands to directly take the things in the forging pool. Even with your stupid intelligence, it was truly shocking. But on the surface, Pinliang's eyes rolled as he analyzed Zhao Ming. I suspect that this is a trick Lin Yi prepared for us. He used to do this all the time, pretending to be lax to lure us in. Think about it. After what happened last time, this place is obviously exposed. If it were you, would you still stay here to forge? Kong Mingming paused and shook his head decisively. Of course not. If it were me, I would have moved a long time ago. I wouldn't stay here and be targeted by others. That's why he should have moved a long time ago. That's why he made this piece of junk to lure us here to destroy it. This is exactly what he wants. Pin Liang said confidently. That's right. I was suspecting that this piece of junk doesn't look like a weapon at all. It's a trap. Lin Yi is really cunning. He even got someone to guard this place, making it sound like this piece of junk is something good. I wouldn't have fallen for it otherwise. Kong Ming cursed angrily. He was the same type of person. When he analyzed Lin Yi, he naturally had the worst of intentions. He didn't know that he was the one who brought this upon himself. There was only one real reason. He was too stupid. Seeing that Kong Ming had taken the initiative to explain himself, Pinliang happily agreed. The two returned to the restaurant and reported to Si Haishao. Si Haishao was stunned when he saw that Kong Ming had bandages all over his body. He looked like he was seriously injured. You were beaten up by Lin Yi? No, Manager Si. I was tricked by him. Kong Ming started complaining with tears and snot. In summary, it wasn't that he didn't do his best. It was just that Lin Yi was too cunning. After listening to Kong Ming's story, Si Haishao, Nantiamba, and the others looked at each other. But thinking about it carefully, Kong Ming had his reasons for being tricked this time. If he didn't make Kong Ming hand over his proof of loyalty, Lin Yi wouldn't be able to trick people like this no matter how cunning he was. Fine. Although you didn't succeed this time, even if you didn't make any contributions, you still worked hard. This old man has seen your sincerity. Consider this your proof of allegiance. In the future, this old man will naturally protect you, Si Haishao said coolly. Kong Ming was overjoyed. He patted his chest and said, Thank you, Manager Si. If you need anything in the future, I will go through fire and water without hesitation. Very good. Let's see what you do next. Si Haishao nodded in satisfaction before turning to Pinliang. Zhaoming is under me now, and I've acknowledged him. But you, Pinliang, I can't just take you in just because you're Zhaoming's friend. You have to contribute something, or you'll have to be put on probation. Pinliang nodded in satisfaction before turning to Pinliang. Pinliang thought about it and pretended to be troubled. Manager Si, I also want to destroy things just now. It's just that Zhaoming was in front. He was scalded the moment he picked up the metal lump. I could only save him first. I didn't have a chance to show off. That may be the case, but I treat everyone equally. Zhaoming suffered so much before I accepted him. If you want me to accept you as well, you can't have no contributions at all. Si Haishao shook his head. That's right. This old man wasn't easy to fool. Pinliang was secretly panicking. These people were obviously targeting Boss Lin Yi. If he didn't find a way to sneak in now, it would be very difficult to get inside information about them in the future. Suddenly, Pinliang's eyes lit up. Right, Manager Si, aren't you looking for people with bad intentions but potential? I happen to know one, and it's a rare beauty. Chapter 4070. As expected, as soon as Si Haishao heard the word beauty, although he was still sitting in a wheelchair and had yet to recover from his injuries, he became visibly excited. He quickly asked, Oh, what beauty? Quickly tell this old man. Zhong Pingliang smiled and said, Her name is Morongzhen. She's a newcomer in the welcome pavilion just like us. She also has a grudge against Lin Yi. She was with us when we went to deal with Lin Yi. There's such a thing? Isn't she a natural ally? Si Haishao was even more elated. He immediately said, Pinliang, hurry up and invite this lady Morong over. If she can satisfy me, I will remember that you have done a great deed. Got it. Pinliang answered and left, leaving Kong Zhaoming looking like he'd just eaten shit. During this time, Morongzhen had always been Kong Ming's favorite. Although he failed to deal with Lin Yi, he was still satisfied with Morongjan's service. This coquettish woman was much better than ordinary women. She was also a master at the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment. Conquering her in bed was a different kind of pleasure. But now, Zhong Pingliang wanted to introduce her to Si Haishao. F*CK, I didn't take the initiative to share with him. Does he have to disgust me like this? Kang Xiaoming cursed at Pinliang in his mind, but he didn't dare show it on his face. It was pointless to say anything else now that things had come to this. He could only swallow his pride and accept it. Soon, Morongjan's coquettish figure appeared before everyone's eyes. Si Haishao almost couldn't hold himself back when he saw her natural seduction. He swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva and hurriedly said, "This old man is Si Haishao. I'm the manager of the Central Chamber of Commerce. I've long heard of Miss Morong's beauty. You're indeed a beauty. How pitiful." Si Haishao couldn't be blamed for losing his composure. He was a lustful man. He had no resistance to women's charms, otherwise he wouldn't have made such a stupid mistake. Since he came to the North Island, he had only been taken to a brothel by Nan Tianba and Nan Tianmin once, and the women he played with were just ordinary women. Morongjan, a naturally seductive expert in the foundation building realm. There was no comparison at all. Manager C really knows how to speak, praising me until I'm embarrassed. Morongjan pretended to be shy as she covered her mouth and smiled. She then glanced at the crowd from the corner of her eyes and said in a coquettish manner, "I'm tired from walking such a long distance on such a hot day. Shopkeeper C, are you so heartless to not even arrange a seat for him?" As a veteran, Si Haishao understood Morongjan's seductive gaze. He gestured to the southern heavenly gate beside him to give up a seat and said with a lecherous smile, "Lady Morong, you must be tired from your journey. Why don't you sit next to me? This seat is specially prepared for you." Of course not. The newcomers in the welcome pavilion don't work part-time outside. As for the reason why I went to the northernmost island with Hongzhong last time, it was only because I had a good relationship with him. I never said I was a waiter from the Hong Merchant Association. Linny shrugged. Then why did you ask me to ask Hongzhong for elixirs last time? I thought you were from the Hong Merchant Association. Ning Shuefei pouted. Linny smiled and said, "Actually, I refined those elixirs myself." However, it was true that he was from the Hong Merchant Association. Ah, is this for real? So many elixirs were refined by you? Ning Shuefei's eyes widened. Hee. At that time, the Hong Merchant Association was pushed aside by a few other merchant associations. They couldn't bring out any decent items for auction, so I helped Hongzhong. That's how I got those elixirs. Linny explained lightly. Chapter 4071. At this time, Shangguan Laner interrupted and said, "So, the highest grade elixir that you gave me as a birthday gift last time was also refined by you, junior brother?" Yes. Linny nodded and admitted. There was no need to hide this kind of thing from the two of them. You can even refine the highest grade elixir so easily. I didn't expect that you, Lin Yi, are such a powerful alchemist. Ning Shuefei's face was full of admiration. She suddenly said, "By the way, I heard that there is a kind of elixir that can directly improve one's strength. It's called the Foundation Establishment Elixir. You can directly upgrade after eating it, unlike the Foundation Establishment Barrier Breaking Elixir, which can only be used to break through the barrier. I wonder if you can refine it?" You also know about the Foundation Establishment Elixir? Linny was slightly surprised. Looking at the Heaven Stage Island, the Foundation Establishment Elixir was an extremely rare and precious elixir. Even in a big chamber of commerce like the Hong Chamber of Commerce, it was rare. That's right. Ning Shuefei proudly raised her neck. This is a good friend of mine told me about it. I can try, but I can't guarantee that I will succeed. Linny did not make any promises. That's great. Ning Shuefei suddenly became excited and said, "I have collected a lot of materials for refining the Foundation Establishment Elixir. Let's refine it together. Then, after refining, the three of us will divide it. But I want 2 portions, and I have to bring one for my good friend." Okay, no problem. Linny nodded and agreed. Since Hongzhong went to Middle Island, he lost a reliable channel to purchase the heart-devouring exquisite grass. In the future, if he wanted to refine more foundation establishment elixir, he could only wait for the news from Chen Heihu. He was a little worried about this recently. He did not expect that Ning Shuefei would actually help him in his time of need. But, according to Lin Yi's estimations, even with Ning Shuefei's high status as the daughter of the West Island's master, she wouldn't be able to collect too many ingredients in private. After all, the heart-devourer exquisite grass was extremely rare, and it wasn't something that could be collected easily. However, after a few days, Ning Shuefei sent someone to deliver a large basket full of materials. This really shocked Lin Yi. After a rough estimation, there were actually at least 10 sets of materials inside. Even with Lin Yi's mental fortitude, he was still shocked by this scene for a long time. Comparisons were odious. Lin Yi couldn't help but marvel. How did Ning Shuefei collect all these? This time, Lin Yi could not help but feel a surge of emotions. After some preparation, he was about to start refining the pill. However, the two ladies, Ning Shuefei and Shangguan Laner, came to him at this time and said in unison, "We want to watch you concoct pills. We want to protect you." This sudden bizarre request simply made Lin Yi not know whether to laugh or cry. Of course, he knew that the two of them did not have any malicious intentions and were sincerely good to him. They didn't mean to harm him. They wanted to see him concoct pills purely for fun. But if they did that, the secret of his divine armament cauldron would be exposed. After pondering for a long time, Lin Yi finally decided to agree and warned, "That's fine, but you can't tell anyone about me concocting pills. Can you guarantee that?" Of course, this is a secret between the three of us." Ning Shuefei and Shangguan Laner immediately high-fived excitedly to celebrate. "Little junior brother, your cave residence is too small. Let's go to my Hualan house to refine pills. It's more spacious there, and no one will disturb us," Shangguan Laner suggested. "All right," Lin Yi nodded. In terms of external environment, Hualan House was the #1 residence in Soaring Pavilion after all, and it was indeed more reliable than his cave residence. Carrying a large basket full of elixirs, the three of them came to Hualan House and immediately entered the practice room specially for Shangguan Laner to cultivate. They began to prepare to start concocting pills. Seeing Lin Yi take out the divine armament cauldron, Ning Shuefei's eyes suddenly lit up, and she said in surprise, "Lin Yi, your alchemy furnace seems to be a little different from others." Although she was not an alchemist, she had seen others concoct pills before. However, she had never seen such a strange part like a tablet on someone else's alchemy furnace. Of course, she didn't know that it was a tablet. Lin Yi smiled and said, "The divine armament cauldron can automatically concoct pills. It's the only one in the world, and you can't see it anywhere else." After searching for the formula for the foundation building pill and putting the elixirs in, the tablet said, "Please wait a moment. Jing is calculating the time and temperature curve for Lin Yi and will automatically generate the alchemy script." "Wow, that's amazing." Ning Shuefei's eyes turned into little stars. Her admiration for her best friend, Han Jingjing, was like a surging river. She was even more confident about the automatic casting mechanism that Han Jingjing was now developing. However, Shanghai Laner asked in surprise, "Little junior brother, who is Jingjing? Is she the name of your alchemy furnace?" "No, she's my girlfriend in the secular world," Lin Yi said with a warm smile. It wasn't just Han Jingjing. All the important women around him made him feel warmth from the bottom of his heart, and he was reluctant to part with them. "Oh, junior brother, it turns out that you have a girlfriend. You never told me about it." Shangguan Lan Er's eyes flashed, and then she asked, "Is she still in the secular world?" Lin Yi shook his head and sighed. "No, she also came to the Heaven Stage Island, but she was not transmitted to the North Island. I don't know which island and which sect she is in now." Since the last time he accidentally met Tian Chan on the extreme North Island, Lin Yi had been worried about this problem. Even Tian Chan had encountered such a big trouble. With Han Jingjing's strength, it should be more difficult for her to adapt to the complicated environment of the Heaven Stage Island than Tian Chan. He didn't know how she was now. "Hey, Fei Fei can help you," She is the real princess of the West Island. She may not know other places, but if your girlfriend happens to be in the West Island, she will be able to find it. Fei Fei, am I right? Shanghai Laner suggested. When Linny heard this, he suddenly had hope. He turned his head and looked at Ning Shuefei expectantly. Han Jingjing was a woman. According to the situation that most of the female cultivators on the Heaven Stage Island were concentrated in the West Island, the possibility of her being transmitted to the West Island was at least more than 60%. Okay, I'll ask someone when I go back. Ning Shuefei promised vaguely. She did not directly tell them about Han Jingjing's current situation. She wanted to give them a big surprise. Chapter 4072. The whereabouts of Han Jingjing, Rock Candy, Sydney, Tian Shan, Songling Rui, Wang Xinyan, and the others were a big concern for him. Even if he couldn't meet them for the time being, if he could know their whereabouts and current situation, he could be relieved. As for the others, Linny originally wanted to let Ning Shuefei inquire about them, but then he thought it was not good to inquire so much, and Ning Shuefei must have sent someone to inquire about them. It would not be good if they were targeted by someone with ulterior motives. Why are you calling me Miss Ning again? Didn't I say that I am the same as little Lawner? You should call me little senior sister Fei Fei. Ning Shuefei said angrily. Well, okay, little senior sister Fei Fei. Lin Yi quickly surrendered. That's more like it, hee. Ning Shuefei stuck out her tongue proudly. Back to business, Lin Yi immediately began to refine the foundation establishment pill. To be on the safe side, he did not put all 10 sets of materials in it, but divided them into 2 batches. The Divine Armament Cauldron also had a maximum tolerance limit. With the previous experience of alchemy, Linny had long been familiar with this. There was no unexpected situation in the process of alchemy this time. In addition to the time taken a little longer than usual, the only thing that surprised Lin Yi was the last out of the furnace. Although there were only 10 sets of materials, the 2 furnaces added up to a total of 14 foundation establishment pills, each of which was of the best quality. This result really shocked Linny himself, not to mention Ning Shuefei and Shangguan Laner. At this moment, they looked at Lin Yi as if they were looking at a monster. Their watery eyes were full of admiration. Lin Yi was a little embarrassed by their gazes. He shrugged and said, "The main thing is that the materials are good, and the quality is rare. It's normal to have these more." Shangguan Laner had no concept of these things, but Ning Shuefei was imperceptibly influenced and had a good understanding of alchemy. When she heard this, she was surprised and said, "Normal?" 2 furnaces refined a total of 14 best quality foundation establishment pills. Was this still considered normal? Lin Yi, you're too humble. Even the pill god Zhang Liju wouldn't be able to do that, right? Little senior sister Fei Fei is too kind. I'm just a newcomer. How can I be compared to Master Zhang? Lin Yi smiled faintly and waved his hand. His current level of alchemy was all thanks to this cheap master of his that he had never met before. According to the agreement, the refined foundation building pills were divided among the 3 of them. Ning Shuefei took 6 pills, and 3 of them were for her good friend. Shanghai Laner took 3 and left the remaining 5 for Lin Yi. I only need 3. You can have the other 2. Lin Yi refused. He knew that the 2 girls didn't like to train,